Friday as I'm recording this, and I'm holding the box upside down. Way to start. Here we have the Holmes box set. I got that nice old RPG book box smell. This came out, I believe, in 1977. Excuse me, there goes my voice. 1977. I wish I could regale you from some tales from antiquity when I and my gaming gang were playing through the this box set, but I can't because it was a little bit before my time. But I was lucky enough to get a set of the Holmes box through the old Google Plus days. I don't think I eBayed this one. I showed this on a different stream earlier in the week, but I'll show it here. Look at that. Even have dice in the back, including the D20. That's the 2D10 D20. Fresh, not out of the wrapping. Of course, here is the actual blue box itself, or the blue book itself, written by Mr. J. Eric Holmes, whose birthday was last Sunday. He would have been, I think, 95 years old. I saw that on the Xenopus archives. I would have done this earlier if I'd seen it earlier. By the time I saw it, I kind of had to slot it in here. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to use a PDF. The PDF that I'm going to use, it's unsanctioned PDF-ery, but it's all I could find. I could not find the Holmes set on drive-through unless I missed it. Someone, if it is there, someone let me know. Dick's Bumpkin says, just wanted to tell you what a help your videos have been in their DMing journey. You have a very underrated channel. Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Bumpkin. Thanks so much. Happy Friday to you. Let me switch gears here so I can get to the PDF-free loop. There we go. So yeah, I don't know the provenance of this PDF. I know that some of these that have been floating around have an error or is an issue or it's missing a page. I don't know if this is one of those because I can't remember where the page is. So if we find it, I can switch to the print book or we can supplement it with the actual print book. We shall see. And I'm not going to read every single thing. I'm going to try to... There's some interesting... See, maybe I should say it a different way. This book holds a very interesting place because it is the first time that the TSR or the makers of D&D or D&D as an entity tried to reach outside of the sort of not safe space, the community to create a product to reach out for outsiders. If you go back to the early 70s, you've got 1974, I guess, when D&D comes out. I think the first groups to get a hold of it were the wargaming and wargaming adjacent groups. Those are the groups who at least had a lot of cross-pollination or were really the gamers who were playing the original D&D. But I think over the next couple of years, it started to leak out into a more general audience who had little to no idea what the heck to do with these rules. This rule set, this book, is the first time they tried to make an intro, try to help those folks who are coming out from outside of wargaming, outside of any kind of space or adjacent or space that's even adjacent, that would have some idea of what to do with a lot of the procedures and mechanics. This is their first attempt, and they made several. BX came after this, BECME came after that, but this is the first one. The other interesting thing about this is that this coming out in 1977, things were moving quickly in different directions. By the time, and I don't know, I think we can look up, I don't have the books in front of me, Playing at the World, the John Peterson books, or I forget the other book's name, but they probably both talk about it to some degree or another. But this was originally meant to be a stepping stone towards OD&D. But by the time this is getting ready to come out, they're prepping up AD&D. So you will see, as we can see here on this page, we're going to find a bunch of these references to, hey, go to AD&D. So they tried to kind of repurpose the material. Say, no, wait, don't go to OD&D. That's old news. Go to AD&D, which is coming now in 1977. Where's my glasses? In 1977, of course, there really isn't much AD&D to be found. Maybe the Monster Manual, because I think the Monster Manual came out first, either 77, 78. Someone can correct me if I'm off on my dates. So there really wasn't much to be found of AD&D at this point. And then once you get to 1981, then the basic line BX comes out. So there's a little window, 77 to I guess 81, where this book fit in. I don't know the dates. You could probably look it up somewhere as to when they stopped printing this book. Like I said, by the time I kind of entered the hobby, which would have been around 79, 80, 81, I don't know, a little bit later. I really just don't recall. I never saw this book. What I saw were the AD&D books and the basic expert books. And I had a mix of those, which I think a lot of folks from my generation. So it just missed me by a little bit, and it seemed to just be this little kind of sliver of time that kind of went and gone. And for me, was not something that I discovered its existence of until really my OSR phase, when I started to do that kind of looking back and saying, hey, I reminiscing over the good old days and kind of going back and taking a look at what was all the things that were really happening, as opposed to my recollections as a child and then early adult and teen and all that. And I found this out, and I was thankfully able to get a hold of it. I have no idea what box sets are going for on eBay these days, and it's a shame that I couldn't find it on drive-through, but maybe my drive-through foo was failing me. But I pretty much went through all the core books that they have for sale, D&D core books by Wizards of the Coast, and I could not find it. There is the Blue Home set book, which I probably forgot to pull out. They kickstarted it I don't know, probably, gosh, I'm not sure how long ago. It's not new, but that was a book. Why do I keep saying box? A book that took the Holmes, goes from levels 1 to 3, and extends it to make it more of a full game that doesn't require jumping to another book. So if you like what you see in Holmes, you want to investigate further, there's Blue Home, and then there was the kind of the, I'm not advanced. It was like the Blue Home. Oh, I forget. There's basically another edition. I'm not exactly sure what the difference between the two editions are. It's like the Journeyman edition, I think. Something like that. That's there for you. All right, so we have a preface. And I'm going to skip. Let me see. Maybe I'll read the preface. Who is it by? Well, it's not actually, is it by Mr. Holmes? I'm not sure. This book is based upon the original work published in 1974 and 3 supplementary booklets published in the 2-year period after the initial release of Dungeons & Dragons. Okay, so that tells you, right, this is building on top of OD&D. But as we get to the end of that paragraph, players who desire to go beyond the basic game are directed to the advanced Dungeons & Dragons books. So, right, an interesting thing here. Okay, don't go back to the original D&D, even though that's what this book is based on. Go forward. But they're trying to do what they can. All right, so we got this is the forward to the original OD&D book, so I'm going to skip that. We have the table of contents. Okay, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip the kind of how to use the book and stuff, and I think I'm really going to skip. Is it worth reading through? Maybe some of the stuff is just curious. I haven't read through Holmes in quite a while, so I don't have any particular aha here or there. I know there's always been some fun stuff with looking at some of the combat things, how weapons work, because I think in this book is where it lists that I think with a dagger you can go twice in a round. I don't remember if he says it specifically, or you can infer it from the example or something, that basically daggers can go twice, which makes some interesting effects. I think there's also stuff in here about for magic users, for I think writing their own scrolls, I think. So I'll try to look for that stuff as I remember it as we're reading through. Other than that, if folks here in the chat have things that they recall that are super interesting, how they define some of the attributes can be kind of fun, just because you see how oftentimes how we use them and what they say are different. I don't know if that's the case here, but we'll read through them. So we got our 6 ability scores, still using the original order, which did not go strength, dex, con, but go strength, int, whiz, con, dex, charisma. So strength, primary wizard for fighters. Actually, it doesn't even say. They're still calling them fighting men. I always like fighting men. Whoops. I gotta remember that clicking the buttons is gonna do things I don't mean it to do. Actually, you know what? Let me do that. Let me fix that, because that's gonna drive me bananas. Let me just go to view. I just want full screen, not presentation. There we go. Hey, Gary. Gary says he kept the earlier damage of all weapons doing 1d6. Yeah, though he mentions he did use the have access to Greyhawk, and I'm guessing Greyhawk because he mentions, just to scroll back really quick, he mentions having the 3 supplementary books, which I'm guessing would have been Greyhawk, Blackmore, and what would the third one have been? Would have been the deities and demigods, or gods and heroes, whatever they called that one. I think that would have been the third one. But yeah, he kept the D6, which I actually like. I used the D6, flat D6 damage, which I think is also the default in BX, though it's got it has as an optional rule using variable damage, I think, unless I've got it reversed. I like the flat damage, actually. All right, so strength doesn't really say much about it, I think, right? It doesn't actually say what it means, which actually is kind of a thing in of itself. So here you go for intelligence. It's prime requisite for magic users. And then it says, hey, you got 13 or higher. You should be considered for this class. That's great. And just that it allows character to learn additional languages. Notice there's nothing in here about, like, you're dumb or you're stupid. Your character is an idiot if he's got 8 or lower intelligence. There's nothing to do with that. Wisdom for clerics. Okay, that's great. Constitution is just good. It will influence how a character can withstand being paralyzed or killed and raised from the dead. In addition, dwarves and halflings have strong constitutions, and characters should have a constitution greater than 9 to be a dwarf or a halfling. That's a nice note. Hey, RPG Grandma. Dex applies to speed and accuracy. I like that they gave you these notes, which is kind of nice, right? As a beginner thing, you might be like, well, what do I do with Dex? Oh, if you've got a Dex of 13 or over, you should probably consider being a thief. If you've got a Wisdom of 3 or over, you should be a cleric. 13 or over, you should do well as a cleric. So you're getting these little pointers of, oh yeah, hey, if you've got these stats, here's kind of where you should be looking. Let me take a sip of, what is this? Grape Aid Spindrift for the working man. Charisma is a combination of appearance, personality, sex appeal, and so forth. The most important aspect is leadership. Character of charisma below 13 cannot hire more than 5 followers, and their loyalty will be lukewarm at best. That is, if the fighting gets hot, there's a good probability they will run away. On the other hand, someone with a charisma of 18 can win over a large number of followers, men or monsters, who will probably stand by him to the death. Also, oh boy, some of this stuff is just not going to age very well, but we're just going to have to roll. We're going to have to roll with it. A female with high charisma will not be eaten by a dragon, but kept captive. Well, isn't that swell? All right. And then, hey, look at that. And just so we don't think that, the door doesn't swing both ways, so to speak. A charismatic male defeated by a witch will not be turned into a frog, but be kept enchanted as her lover, and so forth. Yeah. RPG Grandma says Holmes has some nice features. It does. It's really interesting here that charisma is the only one that gets any kind of write-up on what it actually means. Well, I mean, dexterity does too. And I guess con does too. Con, dex, and charisma get some kind of idea what they are. In strength, intelligence, and wisdom do not. Maybe it's because it's self-evident that your strength, you're strong, you're wise, wisdom. But I would have thought that with dexterity. But maybe it's the fact that it's both speed and accuracy, which I always wish they would have just had it for speed and let accuracy be reflected by skill. And I tend to do that with things I think about. I tend to duck out of the accuracy part and just have it be for speed. But that is me. Terrence says the too hot to eat rule. Yep, something like that. All right, we got some tables of bonuses. That's great. Adjusting ability scores. Let me see. I'm just curious what he says here, because I know that there are interesting interpretations of the adjusting ability scores. In OD&D, it seems to be not. People do so in OD&D. People will play these adjustments to ability scores differently. And what this is so you roll some stats. You get this point, which is interesting because it kind of gets lost in the, like, we're rolling 3d6 down the line, and it's like, oh, there's nothing you can do. And it's like, no, there are things you can do. But you have to pick your class first. So you don't get to make a bunch of adjustments and then pick your class. You have to pick your class and then make adjustments. You can kind of make it fit. It's not necessarily there are probably some edge cases where it's really meaningful, but the idea is that just because you don't have, say you're a fighter and you only have a strength of 10, it doesn't mean that's where you're stuck. You can move things around to do it. Now in OD&D, at least the way some folks interpret it, is you're adjusting, you're not actually adjusting the stats. It's like you're figuring out what your stats could be for experience, but then your actual stats stay the same. I think this is how Daniel, Bandits Keep, he treats it. And his reasoning, which I like, I appreciate, is that, hey, it means that you don't have to be a super strong fighter. You could be a very smart fighter. You're just channeling your intelligence into that strength, right? So you have, okay, so like it says here, fighting men, clerics, halflings, and dwarves can reduce their intelligence score by 2 to add 1 to their prime for every 2. So you can, if you had an intelligence of 16, but you want to be a fighter, but your strength is 10, you could drop your intelligence to 10 and then raise your strength to 13. Now in OD&D, and I don't have the book in front of me, the reading is the way it's worded is maybe at best unclear as to whether you're actually changing stats or whether you're just kind of seeing this like version of your stats that you can use for XP. Daniel does it where, okay, it's just the version and your actual stats stay the same. Other folks swap it. Now, swap them. Now, I think when it gets to BX, it's more clear. It seems to me anyway that you're actually moving points around. Holmes says, let's see, it is possible to raise a character's scores in a prime requisite by lowering the scores of some of their other abilities. This recognizes that one can practice and learn feats of fighting, intelligence, etc., but must take a penalty in another area by doing so. And then it says about the reductions you can make, which seems to indicate that you're actually changing your scores as opposed to kind of just making a, I don't know, like I said, that kind of just for XP purposes. I feel like that's what you're doing, but you can't lower your scores below 9. Then we get into the classes. So fighting men. I love how they bold the AD&D callouts. It's really kind of funny to me because it really feels like somebody took this manuscript and just went through it. I mean, which I feel like as someone who does this kind of stuff, granted on the digital side, not so much not for print, kind of thing that like we get tasked to do sometimes. It's just these ham-fisted insertions where you just kind of roll your eyes and you like usually my rule is I'll usually say once like okay, you really want to do this? It looks really bad and it seems really exactly what it is, which is you just ham-fistedly jamming these words in here. You want to do that? And inevitably the person's like, who's usually, gosh, I don't want to besmirch anybody, but oftentimes I feel like it comes from, I don't even know if marketing or just people who are, and they're like, yup. And I go, okay, all right, I'll do it. I hate it, but I'll do it. Hey, Michael says, to those about to die, we salute you. And then RPG Grandma says, flashing out 25 PCs for players, I suspect many deaths will occur in the arena. Well, I imagine it will. So there you go. So we're going to get liberal AD&D mentions, and they're bolded, so we're not going to miss them. And if you think it's just the digital version that makes it seem bold, no, it's in print. Even the very first time I looked through this, I just remember thinking like, wow, they are really making sure you see AD&D pretty much everywhere you look. Let's see, man. I don't think there's anything super interesting in this, really. We got standard stuff. We got dwarves, we got elves. Are they doing races? I can't remember. Are we racist class here? Yes, we are, actually, I believe. So then we get dwarves, elves. Let's see. So no, I guess no, I don't think so, right? Is it? I don't remember if it's technically racist class or not. Anyway, what it says about elves. 5 feet or more in height, slim of build. They can use all weapons and armor of the fighting man, including all magic weapons, and can also cast spells like a magic user. Yeah, I think it is racist class. Or maybe it's not. No, I don't think it is. I think they're separate, just telling you. Because what I keep stumbling over is, in OD&D, and I think here too, there's not racist class, but you can see clearly how BX took all the blah 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 blah. What I'm trying to think of, the limitations. Do I have Men in Magic here? Hold on, I got a couple OD. I just dropped something. Nope, I got Monsters and Treasure and Underworld. Aren't gonna help me. Never mind. Wait, unless it's down here. Nope, that's not it. Okay, never mind. Basically, OD&D had all these different limitations. So an elf wasn't your class in OD&D, but you could only do certain things as an elf. You could be, and some of the books started dropping. I think you get to Greyhawk, they start saying like, and you could be a thief too at some point. But originally, an elf could be a fighter and a magic user, and they had to mention between adventures, which I think is just on those trips back to town and not necessarily over a whole campaign, but essentially between forays of the dungeon, they had to choose, are you going as a magic user, or are you going as a fighter? And then they would do their experience kind of back and forth, which is what I think is what you're getting here, which they're trying to say. So elves progress in level as both fighting men and magic users, but they progress more slowly because they're getting both. Maybe they are doing them together. We'll see. Oh, I guess they are. I guess they are listed as classes. So I guess it is racist class here. This is telling you how long it's been since I've looked at Holmes. All right, let's keep going. Hey, Mac Thompson, welcome aboard. This is how long it's been since I've looked at Holmes. All right, additional character classes. Yeah, go to AD&D to get more. You want some more? You got some more. And they were going to give them to us. Though this is kind of funny. Obviously, all these books were in the works way before they came out, but this came out in 77. And I want to say that the Player's Handbook didn't come out till, was it 79, 80? Gosh, I could look it up, but I don't remember. If somebody knows offhand which year the Player's Handbook came out for AD&D, but you had to wait a little while. You had to wait a little while for your paladins and rangers, illusionists and witches, monks and druids and assassins, half elves. And then we do get the note, so we're not yet. We're still in a little bit of punk band. A little bit of punk band still left in D&D. At the dungeon master's discretion, a character can be anything his or her player wants them to be. Characters must always start out inexperienced and relatively weak and build on their experience. Thus, an expedition might include, in addition to the 4 basic classes and races, a centaur, a lawful werebear, and a Japanese samurai fighting man. So there you go. They don't get super crazy. Well, werebears and centaurs aren't exactly. I think Balrogs and stuff was mentioned. Or no, was it? I don't remember what they mentioned in OD&D. I know that one of the original players at the game played a Balrog, but I don't know if that was actually mentioned. It's really a shame that I don't know that there's only. I don't know if there's any, or I don't know if there is any extant character sheets of that class, that Balrog character, or whatever it was, because that would have been cool. The hopeless character rule, number of characters, non-player characters, character alignment. We're got the a little bit of a difference. So here we have good and evil chaos and law. So remember, OD&D just had law and chaos. BX goes back to law and chaos, but AD&D actually does more of this. All right, so you're neutral. Your apes are sort of neutral good. Cockatrices are neutral evil. Bugbears are chaotic evil, as are demons. But you notice there are the degrees here, which they don't, because clearly, I imagine that they're staggered like this. That actually, a bugbear is less evil and less chaotic than a demon, which totally makes sense. But unfortunately, they never really drill into what exactly that means in play. How exactly does one be less lawful and less evil as a beholder than a blue dragon? How does that actually operate? Hey, unknown. But we can read this because it's fun. Characters may be lawful, good or evil, neutral, or chaotic, good or evil. Lawful characters always act according to a highly regulated code of behavior, whether for good or evil. Chaotic characters are quite unpredictable and cannot be depended upon to do anything except the unexpected. Always expect the unexpected. They are often, but not always, evil. Neutral characters, such as all thieves, are motivated by self-interest and may steal from their companions or betray them if it is in their own best interest. Why'd you have to tell the thief players that? They should have just excised this one right away. Just get that out of there. How much trouble, how much pain may have been caused by Holmes throwing that out in the universe that, oh yeah, neutral thieves, go ahead and steal from your companions. It's all good. Terrence says, a weak, crappy level 1 Balrog. Gandalf could whip you by spitting hard. Could have. Probably should have found him at level 1. Unfortunately, they waited till the Balrog was level 10. Players may choose any alignment they want and need not reveal it to others. Note that the code of lawful good characters ensures that they would tell everyone that they are lawful. And here comes your, annoying, lawful stupid character. Oh, hey everybody, I am lawful. All right. I think this is kind of fun. I think there's a way to say that. It probably should become clear when you're adventuring with somebody that they are lawful, but that they would actually come out and tell you that's kind of funny. There are some magical items that can be used only by one alignment of characters. If the dungeon master feels that a character has begun to behave in a manner inconsistent with his declared alignment, he may rule that he or she has changed alignment and penalize the character with a loss of experience points. An example of such behavior would be a quote-unquote good character who kills or tortures a prisoner. See, this one didn't make it too far, because how many parties of supposed good guys are torturing everybody at the drop of a hat? Clearly the axiom to neutral thieves stealing from everybody made it through to the future, but good characters, not killing and torturing prisoners did not. RBG Grandma says secret alignments are fun. That's true. Yeah, they can be fun. RBG Grandma also says, but neutral and chaos in the party is when the shenanigans happen. Yeah, I feel like that gets overplayed. And I think that's why a lot of people hate alignments, because that stuff gets overplayed, and then the DMs who decide they need to be heavy-handed on the either one, stopping players from doing things because it's against their alignment, or on this other part of the behavioral stuff. I feel like it should be a long, slow, it's not like you jump off a cliff for the most part. Obviously, if you're a lawful character and you go on some kind of serial killing spree, then that's probably going to drop. You don't have to wait too far for it to drop. I think a lot of stuff should be more sloped. And then we should have some way to measure it. It ends up just being this kind of fiat thing where it's like, I have decided you've gone too far. And that's where you get all the disagreements. And of course, what they mean anyway. I think one of the things that's interesting here is that lawful is usually defined when it's not that kind of cosmic, just law, as kind of like you follow the laws. And that's not what this says. It says they act according to a regulated code of behavior, but one, that code of behavior can be for good or for evil, and two, it doesn't say this is the law of the land. And I think one of the things I've always been fascinated by is people will say, people will say that the exemplar for a chaotic good is Sherlock, and not Sherlock, it's Sherlock Holmes. The exemplar for chaotic good is Robin Hood, and I actually disagree with that, because Robin Hood has a highly regulated code of behavior. All he's doing, you think about Robin Hood, the only reason he's stealing is because someone who has unlawfully taken the throne is unfairly taxing. He wants nothing more than to get the rightful, quote unquote rightful, because it's not like Richard was voting. He wasn't they make it seem like he's the people's king, but whatever. He was the one who should be on the throne, and all he wants is that back. He's not dismissive of law. He's just looking at law being wielded by evil, or that the sort of laws, capital L laws, have been overthrown by an evil entity. He's not somebody who's like, aha, laws be damned, or something like that. Tanis Half-Elven was flagged as chaotic good, says Mac. I cannot remember much of Dragonlance. I kind of want to reread it just to check it out, but I just feel like it's not going to age very well. RPG Grandma says Robin was a thug. I suppose it depends on which version of Robin Hood you're in. I think more of the Robin Hood of film and media, where he's a nobleman who was basically run out of their castle, sometimes has an English accent. RPG Grandma says, and probably based on a guy who killed lots of people with his buddies. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there was a great YouTube video somebody made that I should find it and go through it at some point again, but going through basically King Arthur and all the different, basically getting to be how little we know of anything, if there of any sort of quote unquote real Arthur character, and how it's just kind of story built upon story and all that. It was really fascinating. I'm sure I don't know if that particular creator's done one on Robin Hood, but it'd probably be pretty interesting. Max says, I think Jadzia Dax as a solid chaotic good. Jadzia, from Deep Space Nine? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge Deep Space Nine person. RPG Grandma, you're looking at your history, right? What is that? You're forgetting the quote from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, when you could print the truth of the legend, always print the legend. I don't know enough and really don't care about the bad guy who was the real Robin Hood, because it doesn't really enter into it, because that's not who we really think about when we think of Robin Hood. And his name wasn't even Robin Hood, probably. Or even Robin of Locksley. So I'm going with the legend. All right, so the common tongue, we still have lawful. Oh, we have divisional languages. So now we don't have just. So each of the divisions. So you have a lawful good language, not just chaos and law languages, but lawful good, lawful evil, and so on and so forth. While not understanding the language, creatures who speak a divisional tongue will recognize a hostile one and attack, which is similar to OD&D. But OD&D only had 2 of them. I think cutting those language, I really like. There's something about the idea of a law and chaos language I think is really cool. However, I don't know that cutting that up into now having 3 lawful languages, and right, because chaos, neutral, lawful on the good side, and then basically cutting up now 6 languages all total. Probably not. I would have just kept it as 2, which would have been cool because then you could have, even if they're good and evil, even if you have a lawful good and a lawful evil character or creature, they can still communicate using that lawful language. Time and move in the dungeons, 120 feet per turn at a cautious walk. Then key cautious walk. Each turn takes 10 minutes. In the character's magical universe, so yeah, 10 minutes. Scale time, not actual. That's right. So not real time. In the character's magical universe. The character's magical universe. In the player's universe, arguments sometimes develop and a turn may take considerably longer. Right? So this is basically, they're not talking about time actually playing. They're talking about in-game time. And then in combat, 10 melee rounds per turn. So we're talking hold on a minute. A turn takes 10 minutes. During combat, where it's basically 100 seconds, right? Because a turn in combat takes 10 melee rounds. And this is where things also get. So a lot of folks, which I'm not going to do, but it's always interesting to point out that there's a lot of fodder, as particularly these older editions, because of the words the authors will use to say things. And then if you, depending on how you read them, literally, figuratively, they can take on different meanings. So here it says 10 melee rounds per turn. So you can read that to mean that in a turn of combat, maybe you just get 1 missile round and then 10 melee rounds. Or did they just mean rounds? But, so was this and here's just where the kind of fun stuff starts. And Holmes died in 2010, so he was unfortunately died right before a lot of people with the internet could really start to pester him about what some of these things meant. I'd be curious if there were if he ever over time answered some of these things about what they meant. But it's just, you get these fun little tidbits that can be just very evocative over, well, what did he mean? Did they read melee rounds? Because clearly, that says melee rounds and it's pretty clear, but then, you just think, well, but was that really a typo, and or an editing error where it really said something else and they forgot to just, they were supposed to have deleted melee and they left, it was like melee and missile or something like that, right? And it was like, oh, no, we just took it out, but they forgot to take out melee, and so melee gets stuck in there and it was not meant. Let's see, RPG Grandma says, common tongue is a good thing from the ERB Mars books, but never explained properly in D&D. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think I think that people have really kind of glommed onto it pretty quickly now. It's just, just from even just as a game thing, just so that most people can talk to each other in some way. But yeah, it's never quite explained. They don't give a fictional reason, but that's always because at least early on, these are all kind of setting agnostic or trying to be. They make assumptions. Excuse me. There's a lot of implicit world building, but then a lot of this stuff that's explicit that might explain things like common tongues aren't there because they're not being explicit. So if they were a particular setting like Forgotten Realms, they probably could speak more to, or would speak more to, what that common tongue means. Traders' language, or they might say, oh, because people people move back and forth, so on and so forth, or the Tower of Babel, or I don't know, whatever it is, and that's why you have it. But because they're trying to kind of skate this line of not giving you a real setting, then it ends up being unexplained. But I don't know that too many people struggled with that, because it just on a practical level of play, it just, people need to be able to talk to each other for the most part. All right, let's see, where were we? Okay, time of movement. Yeah, we got that. Let's say the party has come to a blank wall and decides to search for secret doors. Dungeon Master will take 1 turn For one character, search 10-foot section. So basically what you get in kind of BX. Ooh, unbeknownst to the adventurers, a monstrous purple worm is coming toward them down a side corridor. The dungeon master consults his table of monsters and sees that the worm travels 60 feet per turn, so it will be 60 feet closer when the search is completed. Makes sense, right? Let's hope this party remembers to have somebody watch the rear. Ba-dum-bum. Time must be taken to rest, so 1 turn every hour should be spent motionless, 1 turn out of every 6, which is again kind of follows sort of standard protocols. If the party has been running triple normal speed, they will need 2 turns to rest. So again, one of the things you find is you have to sometimes pull out these little rules. This may be the only place in the book where you get a sense of what it means to run. And here you get it. And it's just, I think this is one of the advancements, I guess, in sort of these books design is giving more, making sure that you get more of this sort of reference detail. Because it's very easy to miss this. And then, your party's doing this 120 feet per turn, and then they want to run, and then you're like, how fast do we, someone asks you or say like, we want to run now. How fast is that? And you're like, I'm not sure. And then also you don't know kind of what it means, but here you kind of get a sense, 2 birds with 1 stone. You move at triple speed, but then you need to rest 2 turns before the top of the hour. An unarmored and unencumbered man can move 240 feet per turn. An armored man 120 feet, and carrying a heavy load on only half that. So right. So this is more nuance to that 120 feet per turn, which was I should have pointed this before, a fully armored man. But now it's not until you get down here where it means, well, what the heck does it? What about the non-fully armored man? And here you get it. You can double your speed if you're unarmored and unencumbered, which is actually pretty helpful for the thief in the party who is most likely at least somewhat unarmored, closely, more or less unarmored, and then gets a faster movement rate. And then you lose half your speed if you're carrying a heavy load. And here's a little note: hey, if a character is being pursued, he may have to throw away heavy treasure or armor in order to escape. The or armor is interesting because I've never really seen people rip their armor off to run faster, but it's a good note. RPG Grandma says, encumbrance really affects things. Yes, it does. Since D&D was originally written for wargamers who used to miniature figures, distances are often given in inches. Inches can be converted to feet by multiplying by 10. 1 inch equals 10 feet, so on and so forth, right? And then I think in the outdoors, was it 10 yards? Just kind of changes the scale. So we get some stuff on encumbrance. I don't think I'm going to go through encumbrance part too much. All right, you get 300 gold piece equivalent in your backpack or sack. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of skip it. I don't get that too much light. Most dungeons are dark. Elves and dwarves can see 60 feet in the dark, as can all monsters. And this term embraces all of the evil characters of the dungeon master. So that means this is, again, something that from the fantastic underworld sort of ideas in the white box, in ODD, that if you have a human character and they're an NPC and they're against you, they can see in the dark. But if you were to then talk to that character and convince them to join you in your party and they become a follower, they lose their ability to see in the dark. Humans and hobbits will need artificial light or be reduced to half speed or less. Magic swords and some staves shed light, but the party may have to resort to torches or lanterns. I didn't realize this. This is interesting. Because it seems to indicate that all magic swords shed light, and some staves do. I don't know I will see if we make it to that if it says which ones do and which ones don't, but that's, your Sting from the Hobbit kind of effect. I didn't realize that all magic swords did that. A good torch will burn for 6 turns, while a flask of oil and lantern will last 24 turns. Either allow the bearer to see 30 feet. So not as good as the 60 feet of elves, dwarves, and monsters, which indicates that monsters in the dark, monsters are going to see you before you're able to see them. Artificial light, of course, will attract monsters who live in the dark and will also warn them that the party is approaching. Note that elves and dwarves lose their ability to see 60 feet if there is light within 30 feet. So, if they're with the party, basically, and not ahead by a good margin, or by 30 feet, then they lose that ability. So your dwarf or elf needs to be essentially either far behind the party or far ahead of the party for their actual night vision to kick in. Or what do they call it? They just see in the dark. Dark vision, night. Yeah, I guess dark vision's more accurate. Traps, doors, secret doors, surprises, wandering monsters. Many dungeons contain traps. Yeah, okay. You roll a 6-sided die, so traps don't go off automatically. This is something I don't know when they changed it, but old editions. It wasn't just because you were stepping over, just because there's a trap in the hallway doesn't mean that it would go off. It will only go off on a 1 or 2, which leads to fun things. One, it sort of mechanizes this concept that whatever trap you're going over is not fully functional, or it's so old that it's maybe it's rusted partially, or excuse me, my voice. Let me get a sip of water here. Hold on a minute. Okay, so this 1 or 2 and a 6-sided die for traps kind of mechanizes this concept of it's an old trap. It doesn't function perfectly, so 3 people might step across it, and none of them, or step onto the pressure plate, the trigger, whatever. It doesn't actually go off. It's the 4th person does it, and it goes off. It also leads to some fun stuff because you can have your guide or your thief or whoever's in front, your scout, move through an area. They don't see the trap, but the trap doesn't go off. And then the middle, people are going, and then suddenly in the middle of the party, boom, the trap goes off. Fun stuff. Doors are usually closed and often stuck or locked. They have to have the locks picked or be smashed open. Oh my gosh. A roll of 1 or 2 indicates that a door has been forced open. Of course, if the party has to hit the door several times before getting their roll of 1 or 2, there's no possibility of surprising the occupants in the room, which, makes sense. Okay, listening. Yeah, I'm going to kind of skip by this. Secret doors. Surprise, I think is pretty much the same. I do like this, and I always forget to implement it, but I like it a lot. A character surprised by a monster may drop whatever he's holding on a die roll of 6, and the monster gains first reaction, which means they'll usually charge to attack the party. I mean, not that part. Just the dropping stuff you're holding is fun. Because then if they happen to drop the torch or the lantern, torch could go out, the lantern could break, and get some fun things with the drop. And of course, if they drop their weapon or their shield and then the monster's on top of them, that also is fun. At the end of each 3 turns, you roll to see if a wandering monsters come. A roll of 6 means that something has come strolling along. If the party has someone watching, they will see or hear the monster up to 120 feet away, unless it is coming around a corner, very quiet, etc. If it is uncertain how far away the monster is, roll 2 6-sided dice and multiply by 10. The result is distance in feet. So there you go. It doesn't here. So here the distance is not linked to surprise, right? But interesting that if the party is someone watching, they can see or hear them up to 120 feet away, which seems to indicate that if they're not watching, regardless of surprise, or I don't even know when you would roll surprise, that the monsters could show up much, much closer. Hey, Brian Smith. We are reading some golden oldies today. So you can get wandering monsters, maybe pre-selected by the dungeon master, or yada, 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 or use random generation. That's great. The number of wandering monsters appearing should be roughly equal to the strength of the party encountering them. So, for those, because here's one of those things that gets emphasized in the OSR, that there's no balance here, but there actually is. They don't always talk about it. They don't always do it the same ways, but there was this concept of you should be sort of the context of who your party is kind of matters. My Betty the cat behind me was doing something, so I had to see what she's doing, but she's just laying on my backpack, which is fine. So whether you want to decide to follow this or not, but people were thinking in terms of balance, but it's not as hardcore. I don't know. It seems to me that the discussion around it isn't just so hardcore, I guess. All right, first level adventures encountering monsters typically found on the first level dungeon should be faced with roughly equal numbers, i.e. a party of 3 would encounter 2 to 6 orcs, 3 to 12 giant rats, etc. A party of 3 would encounter 2 to 6 orcs, roughly equal numbers. So I guess you're rolling. What is that? It's 2d3. Or is that 1d4? 4 plus, no. How do you get 2 to 6? Are orcs less hit dice in this? I don't know. Roughly equal. That's fine. However, the party were second level, or the first level monsters were encountered on the second level of the dungeon, the number of wandering monsters encountered should be doubled. Because remember this idea that each level down you're going, you're increasing difficulty. And it's really, it's kind of obfuscated here, but you get the idea. First level party on the first floor, okay, that's the level they should be on. First level party, first floor. So the challenge is about equal. That's what he's saying. If that first level party goes to the second floor, this concept of the strength of the party doesn't really matter. It's kind of like the level, it's kind of like the strength of the party if they were the level that the level's meant for. So if your first level party decides to go down to the second level, now they're getting double because now it's their numbers, but it's like they're encountering that 3-man party or 3-person party on level 1. When they go down level 2, they're getting same 3-person party, but now of second level, which means even though they're not their first level, they're getting that kind of second level equivalent encounters. So it's as much balancing on the dungeon level as is with the party. It's kind of doing sort of a little both. Darren says that's our Betty or Elizabeth T. Feline. Yeah, I like that. Okay, however, if the party were second level or the first level monsters were encountered on the second level dungeon, all right, I got that already. Should be doubled. In a like manner, the number of monsters should be tripled for third level adventures or in the third level of the dungeon if the monsters are first level. If justification is needed, simply consider that a small party is relatively quiet, thus attracting less attention than a large group, and powerful characters will similarly bring more numbers of monsters. The basic number of monsters appearing in an encounter with wandering monsters is shown in parentheses after each monster. Modify the number as required to suit the situation. Roll the appropriate die or dice to generate the random. All right, I'm going to skip past the rest of that. So now we get some tables, which I'm not going to go through, but kobolds. And so here we go. I guess similar to I don't know. And again, I don't know when they stopped doing this. It's definitely in BX still has these kind of dungeon level in encounter numbers. I think AD&D does too. BX did also. So you can see kind of on the first level, you're getting kobolds, goblins, warriors, or seers. Or is that supposed to be and or? I'm not sure. Or maybe orcs, skeletons, zombies, bandits, berserkers, sturges, adepts or footpads, dwarves, elves, or the old gelatinous cube. And then, so you go from 2 to 5 orcs on the first level to 5 to 20 orcs on the second level. Now, some of these numbers you might get to a point where it gets a little bit, depending on how you want to look at your dungeon, as how do these 20 orcs, what the heck are 20 orcs doing down here? But, you have to, I think, they're at this point where people are playing, we're playing kind of loosey-goosey with how things are where they are. So you just kind of roll with it. Yeah, there are 20 orcs here. They're working. They're doing stuff. RPG Grandma says, Holmes is definitely more small expedition versus OD&D, assuming expeditions of hundreds or thousands could happen. Though I don't think they have that in the dungeon, RPG Grandma. I think once we get in the wilderness, you get that kind of hundreds. I don't remember seeing thousands, but maybe in OD&D you can get up that much. But we're there in dungeons here. And once you get in the dungeons, I think, where's Monsters and Treasure? I don't know if the numbers are super. I could see, though. I could kind of tell you. Hold on a minute. Straight off. Do we have monsters? Let me see. Or is this just monsters? Do I have to go to Underworld for the table of monsters? Hold on a minute. I can do this. Distribution of monsters and treasure. No, hold on. Do we have some? Okay, so, yeah, it doesn't really say. They don't give numbers in here. So monster level, so just for reference, on level 1 in OD&D, we've got kobolds, goblins, skeletons, orcs, giant rats, centipedes, bandits, and spiders. So you can see here they actually added a few, probably pulling from the other books. If I go to Monsters and Treasure and I look up kobolds, or look at the table maybe is better at the beginning. So monster type kobolds, we get where? Goblins or kobolds? What's the asterisk mean? Asterisk used primarily for outdoor. Yeah, so here it doesn't really say. It says third. So for kobolds, you can get 40 to 400, but we're talking mostly outside. If we're talking about their lair, you get 50% number, but that's not kind of random in a dungeon. So they don't really, unless it could say it somewhere else, what numbers are in a dungeon, but you don't really get too much of that, unfortunately. Now, I was talking to Daniel last night, and I'm probably going to do some work on that later this afternoon, maybe on the other channel. But Arneson using kind of chainmail points to stock dungeons, which is another way you can get to some numbers as opposed to dice. Brian says, gelatinous cube question, is it fair for one to move through a portcullis? Would it get turned into a bunch of little chunks first? Push through it like in Terminator 2? Man, that's a good question. I think I would have it push through it, but maybe slow it down. I think they're probably pretty slow. I would imagine it might destroy the portcullis because it kind of does eat through things. So I guess I would rule it would just eat through the portcullis, but just slowly. And that would actually be, what, Brian Smith, that you bring that up, that would be an awesome thing to have in a dungeon to kind of a precursor to a cube is seeing the remains of a portcullis that's just basically level with the floor, and then at some height, however high the gelatinous cube goes, and it's just, you see like the ends of these bars that clearly once came down but are just gone. It'd be a great kind of thing, a great thing to have and to sort of prepare a party that there might be some kind of acidic creature in there. Yep, the big expedition numbers for travel are in the Yep, RPG Grandma, I got you. And I checked it out, but unfortunately there are no numbers for in the dungeon. All right, we got the reaction table, which is basically the same as it was. Attacks immediately, only on a score of 2. I always want to note that it is hostile on a 3 to 5, but they're not just gonna run in like raving lunatics for the most part. Uncertain, and then hey, friendly, and then enthusiastic at the other end of the scale. Mac Thompson says maybe the cube is like Minecraft. It just becomes a dozen new baby cubes. That's interesting too. But I just feel like why wouldn't it eat? I guess what I need to be explained is why wouldn't it eat the portcullis like it would other things? Because doesn't it eat other metal? Or doesn't it eat metal? Am I gonna have to look up a gelatinous cube now to remember if it eats metal or not? Where do gelatinous cubes appear? Do they in OD&D somewhere? Or am I gonna have to look in this book or BX? What? Do I have a gelatinous cube? No, it's not in that book. Oops. Gelatinous cubes, are you here? I don't think it is here, but I'll look. Elves, Trance, Griffins, Visible Stalkers. These aren't, I don't think they're in alphabetical order. Oh, here we go. Gelatinous cubes. So okay, so they don't eat metal because the metal just hangs out. So it's just organic material. Not much of a note there, but all right. Underground creatures of near complete transparency, which fit exactly the typical quarter of a dungeon. Metal objects as absorbed into them would be visible. So yeah, I guess we got to go back to it. Probably squeezes through and then. But I have a feeling wouldn't those cubes re-merge together once they all drop on the floor? Still be fun. I kind of like the idea of maybe that's how you get more cubes. Is something cuts into the cube and slices off into baby cubes. All right, experience points and experience levels. So notice again, you do not get that much. 225 experience points for a 5+1 hit die monster is not going to get you there. Since to get to a second level, a fighting man needs 2,000 gold, 2,000 experience. So if you were going to get that by killing things, and remember, this is be divided up by 5 for your party. So you're looking at 225 divided by, let's just say 5. 45 experience points each, assuming you had a 5-man party. And then you'd have to do that a whole bunch of times. So you can do it. You don't want to. If the defeated monster is lower in level than the character who overcomes him, less experience is gained. This is another factor. You can. This doesn't get really. And this, I believe, is in BX2. Like you can get a little bit complicated with your experience point allotments because you're kind of supposed to look at this thing. Like if you're a third level party and you're just hamming up on monsters on the first level of the dungeon, you're supposed to get only a fraction of the experience, which is supposed to be true for both treasure and monster. So you're supposed to be kind of impelled to keep going deeper to at least your same level as you. And I think if you end up going lower level than you are, I mean, going to a lower level of the dungeon than your level. So if you say a third party group going to the fourth level of the dungeon, I think you're actually supposed to get more. So you're supposed to be sort of encouraged to not sit there. You just can't kill rats forever. You just will stop getting meaningful experience for them. Hey, Swords and Stones. Welcome aboard. All right. Let's keep it moving. Keep it moving. All right. Okay, Dungeon Master. Yeah, I'm going to kind of skip this stuff. I don't think there's going to be anything interesting here unless he says, let's say, he has some explanation of Thief's abilities. So he's just got very simplistic things for thieves. And then okay, so you start off getting this. This is an interesting way of doing it. So basically, for the Thieves abilities, you get 3 rows. Each row, instead of just having, I don't know why he does this A, B, C as opposed to between level 1, level 2, level 3, but that's how he does. So you start off as an apprentice, and you have 15% open lock, 10% remove trap, 20% pickpocket, 20% move silently, 10% hide in shadows, and then hear noise on a 1 to 2. You get a 5% to each one of those. So I don't know why we needed to. It's kind of silly because the math is so easy. Second level you add 5%, and third level you add 5% again, and that's the same for all of them except for your hear noise. When you add 1, you get 1 pip at third level. Notice that the names are very mundane. So that concept of the supernatural thief doesn't really, you don't get that vibe in Holmes like you do in AD&D or BX and some of the other rules. Does it say later? I think we get an example, which is always good. I don't think it does. I don't think it even gives you anything about it. When the determination of a percentage probability is called for, as in the Thieves table above, use a 20-sided die, roll 2 such die, or roll 1 twice, and designated 1 die the tens and 1 the units, because remember, in the original box set, your D20s was just a D20, but with 2 1 to 10s. So you could roll it twice and get your use 1 for your 10s die, 1 for your 1s die, as opposed to using a percentile dice. So here we have a little example. Drago the thief tries to pick the lock on a treasure chest. He is a first level thief, so he needs to roll a 1% to 15% on the dice. He rolls a red 3 and a white 0, a 30%, and not good enough to open the lock. He is allowed only that 1 try, 1 roll of the dice to open it, because no matter how long he works on the lock, there is only a 50% chance that an inexperienced thief can get it open. Later, Drago is alone in a dark corridor with a party of when a party of evil warriors walks by. He announces that he will hide in shadows. He rolls a red 0 and a white 2, 2%, much less than the score of 10% he needs for success. He is not seen. The thief's ability to hear noise at closed doors, secret panels, etc. is rolled on a 6-sided die like everyone else, but his ability improves as he advances in experience. So, there you go. And they don't mention here, but there used to be, and I don't remember which rule it appeared in. I assume it appeared in one of the rules, but sometimes there are just these kind of really well understood house rules that everybody did that don't actually appear anywhere. But I believe the rule, as far as I remember, was that when you level up, you could come back and try again. I mean, it's something that I think in more modern play, it just seems kind of absurd. So there was some locked room in a dungeon, and we're going to be doing all kinds of stuff, and then I go up a level, and I'm going to remember to go all the way back. Like it kind of loses in the original style of play, when your whole campaign for however many years is all about delving in a singular dungeon, like the like Blackmoor or like Greyhawk or insert whatever, say, or Caverns of Thracia, something like that, then it kind of makes sense that, like, okay, you're in this one dungeon, you're going around. If you can remember and maybe you level up quickly, go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back and check out that room because now I could try it again, and now I've got 20% instead of 15%, so I can try it. Whatever. I mean, why at that point have you not done something else to the lock, like just broken it down or whatever? But hey, fine, you didn't, so you can go back. But once you get into kind of module play and just the way the campaigns move around, like if you were on Isle of Dread and you went all the way up to Isle of Dread, maybe you leveled up at the inside the caldera of the volcano, and then everything's going. Are you going to remember that somewhere else in the Isle of Dread, however many sessions ago, there was a chest or a room that you didn't get into, and then maybe, or were you at Hamlet and there was something in the moat house you didn't get, but now you've moved over to keep on the Borderlands? Are you going to go back to Hamlet? Like, no, you're probably not. So, a little bit. So it really was dependent on kind of a style of play thing that I think doesn't really, people say it. I think I hear the discussions now, and I just can't. People are like, I don't know what to do with that because we're not hanging around in one place that long. Obviously, if you're doing mega dungeons, this would also apply. And I guess there are a fair amount of mega dungeons out there, but I don't know how much people are actually playing mega dungeons. As in, I don't mean that nobody plays. I mean just comparatively. I think mega dungeons are comparatively rare to play through as opposed to other things. But, technically you could do that. Brian says he loves imagining high-level PCs rolling back into star towns and busting open small chests for like 30 gold pieces. Yeah, exactly. All right, clerical abilities, turn away undead. I'm not going to. So here we go. Use of the word level. The word level is used in the game to mean successfully deeper strata of the dungeon labyrinths. Also, characters advance in experience by level, and at each new level, they increase their hit dice, the amount of damage they can take, and increase in special abilities such as theft or magic. Level is used in reference to monsters to indicate how tough and ferocious they are. Thus, a monster's level usually indicates its hit dice and special abilities, and is a measure of how hard it is to kill. A 5th level monster, such as a 5-headed Hydra, is worth many more experience than a 1st level orc. Most dungeons are constructed at deeper and deeper levels below the surface. Usually the dungeon level indicates how difficult it is. Thus, the 3rd level of a dungeon would contain monsters primarily drawn from the 3rd level, although not exclusively. Such an area of the dungeon would be particularly dangerous for 1st level characters and probably should not be attempted until they have more experience. We are talking, therefore, of dungeon level, monster level, character level, and spell level. Example, quote, while on the 4th dungeon level, my 6th level magic user encountered a 5th level monster and attacked it with a 3rd level spell. Think we could have come up with some other words besides level? No, this is good. The multiple usage of the term level will become quite familiar and not at all confusing once players have participated in a few sessions of the game. It's kind of fun. I like that at least he thought, like, maybe we should talk about this because we do use level. I mean, really, as someone, I don't know about you guys, but as someone who's just embedded in it, yeah, that quote makes total sense to me. Oh yeah, 3rd, 4th level dungeon, right? You're 6th level, 5th level monster, 3rd level spell. Like I'm all with you. But I appreciate that Holmes here is looking at it and going, man, if you just step away from the hobby for a minute and you just start using level about 8 times and they all means different things in one sentence, like maybe I should spend a moment to tell you, at least give you an idea why these things are the way they are. So that was good. All right, turning stuff. Spells, I'm not going to go over spells and saving throws. I don't think there's anything. Let's just say charm is always interesting because it tends to change from edition to edition. What do we get here? So in the Holmes charm, and I have, no, hold on a minute. Let me get monster. Where's Monsters Magic? Here we go. All right. Men and Magic. So I didn't think about doing something more comparative. Rolling on a cord. Get off me, cord. Oh, you're going to drive me nuts. Oh, the cord's caught in my wheel. There it goes. All right. This might be kind of fun. Just because I didn't really think about this before, but looking at what different spells and different things are between, I could pull out BX also, but let's just do OD&D for right now. So charm person So here we go. According to OD&D, this spell applies to all two-legged, generally mammalian figures, near to or less than man size, excluding all monsters in the undead class, but including sprites, pixies, nixies, kobolds, goblins, orcs, hobgoblins, and gnolls. If the spell is successful, it will cause the charmed entity to come completely under the influence of the magic user until such time as the quote-unquote charm is dispelled. And parenthetically, dispel magic. So here you can see this is the most powerful charm. It does not end until it is dispelled. It is quasi-permanent, right? And here we see when we get to Holmes, what do we get? This spell applies to all two-legged, generally mammalian humanoids of approximately man size, including sprites, pixies, nixies, kobolds, goblins, orcs, hobgoblins, and gnolls. So it's matching up is exactly the same. It does not affect the undead or large monsters. Change the wording a little bit from the undead class, right? Just undead or large monsters, because now there's a different spell for that. But I don't think, do we even have Charm Monster in OD&D? I wonder if do we? Do ya? Did ya? Yeah. Charm Monster's 4th level in OD&D. Okay. If the spell is successful, it will cause the charmed entity to come completely under the influence of the magic user. The possibility of the entity breaking free from the charm spell later depends upon its intelligence. A new saving throw will be made according to the following schedule. So now we've added the first limit. So before it was just, yeah, you're charmed until it's dispelled. Which, super cool. A lot cooler if you're a player casting charm on a monster and not a monster casting charm on you. Okay, so I don't know if that entered into the change because that obviously as a player character, that just feels super cruddy if, okay, great, I'm under this guy's, under the whatever this evil magic user's control, and I better hope that somebody can dispel me, but it could be that I'm the guy with the dispel. That can be kind of tough. So now it's according to your intelligence. And I think this is what you get also in BX, something like this. So if you really not at low intelligence, you only get a saving throw every month. 7 to 9, or I'll just read it out to you. 3 to 6 a month, 7 to 9, 3 weeks, 10 to 11, 2 weeks, 12 to 15, 1 week, 6 to 17, 2 days, 18 or more, 1 day. So there you have it. So if you manage to get something not very intelligent or with a low intelligence score, then you can have it for a long time, but not nigh indefinitely. And notice also, there's no talking here about the limits in terms of, because a lot of times now they will add in charm these riders of, but you can't ask it to harm itself, you can't have to do this or that. There's nothing here. It doesn't even say like, oh, they think of you as their friend. It just says you are completely under the influence. Now it says influence, not control. So there's some wording in there, and you can talk about how you want to interpret influence. But other than that, that's it. You're completely under the influence, however you want to say influence. And other than that, I don't know if there's anything else that's particularly interesting. I don't even know that that's interesting, but I always look to see those because there are those spells that always seem to get shifted around, and that's one of them. All right, then I can kind of make up some time here. Here we go. So boy, it slides right in there from evil clerics to combat melee. Evil clerics have basically the same spells as do good clerics. However, spells in italics are reversed for evil clerics. And those reverse spells are cause light wounds, detect good, darkness, contaminate food and water, cause fear, and curse. All right, great. So let's see here. Now we get on to combat melee. Again, we get melee thrown in here. I don't know why exactly, because you can be in combat and not be in melee, but which is probably when he says melee rounds, he's really referring to combat rounds. This is, again, where you can spend a lot of time trying to interpret what they mean by some of these things where you're not sure is it a mistake? Are they just using a different label that we're not used to using? Or do they mean something when they specifically call out melee as opposed to just combat? RBG Grandma says, but if we can't charm them to step off a ledge, how do we recreate that Conan the Barbarian scene with the girl worshiper? She'd be snake charmed. That's true. And it could be, maybe it's a different effect. Maybe she was really mesmerized rather than charmed. Ha-ha. But it's not called snake charm person. It's merely called charm person. There might be a snake charm. Yeah, AD&D added a bunch of stuff. I can't remember. Sword and Stone's talking about pultrification. Nice. All right, so combat results are based on the attacker's ability, indicated by his level, and the defender's ability, indicated by their armor class. In a melee, the attacker strikes a blow or quote unquote takes a swing. The probability of a hit is converted into a random number of 1 to 20. Specially marked die is recommended. The attacking player rolls, and if the number indicated on the tables is, if the number indicated on the tables or greater is scored, a hit has been made on the opponent. Interesting, the language is interesting. The probability of a hit is converted into a random number of 1 to 20. Okay. He then makes another die roll with one 6-sided die. As was mentioned before, we're doing flat d6 for all weapons to see how many points of damage were done by the hit. The more complex system used for advanced play allows for varying amount of damage by different weapons and by various sorts of monsters. This is a call out to Greyhawk and, of course, AD&D, which we get another nice bolded reference. Don't forget about AD&D. In stores everywhere. Just wait 2 more years, or whatever it is. Swords and Stones says, this is a fun read-through as I started a bit later in D&D around 81. Yep, I'm in that same class, Swords and Stones. Absolutely. So yeah, it was definitely new ground for me when I discovered this version existed. Okay. These are subtracted from the defender's hit points. All right, that's fine. The die roll, or say if he survives, if the hit points are reduced to 0 or below, the combatant is dead. If he survives, he gets to swing at his attacker. The die roll is read off the table for his attack capability against his opponent's armor class, and he makes a 20-sided die roll. If he makes his score or greater, damage points are rolled and subtracted. If he does not make his die roll, the attack was a miss, glanced off his opponent's shield or armor, etc., and the first opponent strikes again. So you're just right, it's going back and forth. Now this clearly seems like melee. We have not made any, because obviously in missile fire, you don't get exchanges like this, and it talks about taking a swing, which is clearly, an axe, sword, yada, yada, yada. You don't swing with your bow. At least I don't think you do. The combat tables used by D&D gamers are often extremely complicated. Okay. Full tables are given in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, available soon. Tables below are deliberately simplified, but will take some practice to use them with facility. Once the system is mastered, however, players can add whatever modifications they wish. All right, that's an interesting note. I don't think I've seen that too much. Players can add whatever modifications they wish. I wonder what that means. The players can. Melee is the most exciting part of the game, but it must be imagined as if it were occurring in slow motion so that the effect of each blow can be worked out. When the party of adventurers is attacked by several monsters, all may be involved in melee, but the hand-to-hand battles must be fought one at a time, and then the result imagined as if it were all going on simultaneously. So another interesting note, because how do you interpret that? When the party is attacked by several monsters, all may be involved, but they're fought one at a time. I think they mean each person's turn, and not me versus monster, mano a mano until something, and then, it's not like a bunch, and then the other person goes a bunch, the other person goes, I think he means just kind of the combat turn, but it's an interesting way to put it. Mac Thompson calling out the people who are watching but not liking. I appreciate that, Mac. All right, so here we go. So this is something you notice pretty much similar to what you get in BX. It might be the same. Normal man against no armor. It's weird spacing. Is that spacing like that in the book, or is that just because the text has obviously been OCR'd so that you can highlight text stuff, which I appreciate. It's not just a bunch of images. But I'm just curious, what page are we on? We're on page 18. I gotta imagine that spacing is OCR. Yeah, it is. Okay, the numbers look normal. Look normal in the printed book. It's the weird OCR thing that has these, and also all the numbers not lining up. So okay, so normal man, it's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then basically first to third. All right, this is that interesting bit where all the characters, fighters, magic users, thieves, everything. This is that highly, I guess they're talking about this, that simplification. Everybody gets the same number, which is basically +1 over a normal man. So normal man, then everyone else gets a +1. So now they only need a 10 instead of 11, and they only need a 17 at the other end instead of an 18 to hit plate and shield. And remember, if you want to go over third level, consult the table in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons coming soon. So just never forget. Never forget, never surrender. And then we get the For monsters, it's a little bit different. And again, this just for those who might miss the beginning, this is a gray market PDF just that I randomly came across. I have the printed book as I've shown, but I could not find a legitimate copy anywhere. I don't think it's offered on drive-thru. If somebody knows if it is and I just couldn't find it, then let me know. I would gladly buy it. And I would gladly link people to it. Can't find it. And there might be some oddities with this one besides this because it's been OSR'd and clearly not cleaned up all that well. And there may be some missing content, but it's got what we got. Well, it's what you got. I got my printed book. Har har. And I'm surprised they haven't, just in terms of just having another one of these books that they can print on demand and sell. I don't know why. Brian Smith says role playing as a normal man sounds pretty lame. Who are you? I am Jim, the normal man. Yes. Peasant level 5, the way to play? Absolutely. All right, poisoned weapons. If a hit is scored by a poison weapon, a curare-tipped blowgun dart, the poison sting of a giant scorpion, etc., the victim must make a saving throw against poison or paralysis and also take the number of damage points indicated by the die roll. It is recommended that the dungeon master not allow players to make use of poison weapons in all but extreme situations. It's just not. It's not sporting. I think it's not heroic. That is definitely, if you're going to go down the poison route, you're definitely evil. It's just not cool, man. Not cool. So we got some rules for oil. You can spread them on the floor and light them. The pool will be 5 feet across, and flames do 2 8-sided dice of damage to anything caught within the fire, and it burns out 1 turn or 10 melee rounds. We got more stuff. Let's see. Where is this going from? Huge targets such as dragons, subtract 3. Subtract 3 from what? Where is this? Hold on a minute. What happened? What happened here? We get the fire, which seems like it's a nice paragraph, and then the next column, we're on 19. What's missing? Oh, never mind. I see. Sorry, that's mine because I wasn't at the top of the page. All right. If a creature is struck directly with oil, damage will be 1 8-sided die on the first round, and then a second round it's 2, and then okay. And you can also use them as missiles. Though he hasn't mentioned, so interesting, we talk about flasks of oil as missiles, but he hasn't actually talked about missiles at all yet. Which you can hurl, and there we get about huge targets, igniting oil, flaming oil, holy water. Here we go. Now we get to missile fire. Hits with arrows and other missiles are based on the range of the weapon in question. Short, medium, and long ranges of missile weapons and feet are here. And this is a good table because OD&D doesn't have it. In fact, OD&D, you had to go to chainmail, assuming you had chainmail, to find missile weapon distances. So it's a plus that now it's in the actual rules. But we actually haven't gotten to, because it's kind of funny, he jumps right into melee, then into special cases and then missile fire kind of in this special case sort of area. But he hasn't actually established when you can actually do this, because it's basically like, oh yeah, monsters, you're fighting them in hand to hand, and then you're doing fire, and oh, by the way, you can throw fire, and oh, by the way, here's missile weapons. So here we got a note, though. If the archer is firing at long range, his dice roll for a hit is 1 higher than the score for hits with any other weapon, and is read off the table under the opponent's armor class. At medium range, the archer uses the score as shown, and at close range, he adds 1. So there's this concept of things at longer distance, or longer range are harder to hit, and short range easier to hit. In fact, it's easier to hit at that close range with your missile weapon than with your melee weapon, which I don't know if that makes sense to me, but hey, it is what it is. Thus, a longbowman fires an arrow at a giant rat, which is armor class 7, at a range of 200 feet, which is long range. He needs a 13, rolls a 9, misses. The rat advances, and the archer fires another arrow when he's 60 feet away, which is now short range. He rolls an 11, adds 1 for close range, gets a 12, a hit, and does 1 die of damage. Note that range is shown for underground missile fire. Outdoors, read feet as yards. Also, unless in a very high-roofed area, all slinging as well as long-range fire is not possible. I like that. So you just go through this whole thing of like, oh yeah, this is for underground, all this stuff. But oh, by the way, Unless you're in some place with super high ceilings, yeah, you're not gonna be able to fire long range. Because I was gonna say, like 240 feet in a dungeon, that's a. I mean, who's got that kind of room? Who you're no longer in a dungeon, you're in some kind of massive cavern. So that's pretty funny to give all that and say, oh, by the way, you're not gonna get to use that. Sorry. I really can't imagine, practically speaking, very many places where you'll be outside of short range in the dungeon. I suppose if you're using a hand axe, oh, you don't even get to. Oh, you only get short and long. That, a spear can only go 30 feet at long range. That feels a little short. Okay, we got cover. I'm not going to go cover. Just, oh, this is still for melee stuff, or sorry, for missile stuff. When an enemy figure is only partially exposed, the archer must subtract 2 from his die roll. All right, that's easy enough. Magic weapons usually designated as +1, +2, +3. I think I'm going to get to. So here we go. Combat rounds, time, and movement in the melee. He who has the longest weapon, if all things are equal, goes first. I think we haven't gotten there yet. We'll see what he says. We haven't gotten there yet. I like Brian Smith's idea of a crossbow attached to a 10-foot pole. So, here we go. There are 10 rounds, quote-unquote rounds of combat per turn. Each round is 10 seconds, so a combat turn is shorter than a regular turn. Because remember, regular turn in this case is that exploration turn of 10 minutes, but in combat, it's 100 seconds. I'm not sure why they didn't make it something that lines up better, like make a turn a minute. I don't know why they did that, but that's what they're doing. That's what they've done. Movement, if any, is usually at a sprint. An unarmed man can move 20 feet per melee round. A fully armored man, only 10 feet. Each round consists of an exchange of blows with ordinary weapons. Here we go. Light weapons, such as a dagger, allow 2 blows per round. So this is where you get into it is some interesting tactics in Holmes. Because if everything's doing a d6, there is no advantage to using a sword over a dagger or a gigantic battle axe or some sort of warhammer or a heavy two-handed sword. There's no advantage. Everyone's doing d6 damage. But oh boy, if you have a dagger, you have to go twice. Well, then, shiv, 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 here we come. And there's been, I think you can read different blogs, probably as Xenopus Archives, I would imagine, to have some more discussion about what may have been meant and what this was supposed to simulate or blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so the dagger is like the best weapon you can have, basically, because it gives you an extra attack every round. The heavy two-handed sword, battle axe, halberd, flail, morningstar, and most polearms can only be used once every other round. So not only is the dagger better than the other regular weapons, but if you do have a heavy two-handed sword, you're basically, it's like one round of loading up. So you're like tick 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 as you bring your sword back, and then whoosh. And then you spend the next turn tick 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 tick, bring it back again, and then whoosh. So who wants to have a battle axe or a two-hander with that? And you're only doing the same. You're doing the same damage, d6. It's not like you're doing double damage, which still wouldn't be worth it because the odds are better if you're taking 2 rolls to do double damage than 1 roll. I think, right? 1 roll for double damage. In other words, if you could do 1d6, you get 2 attempts to do 1d6 each, as opposed to 1 roll to do 2d6. I think you're still better off doing 2 rolls for 1d6 each. Brian Smith says World War II would have been even worse if everybody wielded daggers. I think everybody had daggers in World War II. They just didn't generally, unless you're, gosh, that scene in Saving Private Ryan. Didn't usually come down to daggers. The light crossbow takes time to cock and load, so it likewise can be fired only once every other round. I use that rule. I think that's a good rule. Heavy crossbow takes twice as long to load and fire. Unless otherwise specified, monsters can strike, bite, claw, jab, etc. as fast as a man can strike with a hand weapon. Characters can be attacked by more than one opponent at a time. The Dungeon Master should be guided by the actual placement of the figures on a paper sketch, or on the table in deciding how many opponents can engage as melee starts, always keeping in mind the dimensions of the dungeon itself. One would not expect to get more than 2 or 3 figures fighting side by side in a 10-foot corridor, for example. So they don't have that concept of the 5-foot square, but you can kind of see it starting to form up. It's like how, in this case, you could probably just put your figurines, your minis, and you can just see that they just don't, how many can you get in there and still be side by side? Not too many. Sword and Stone says, 2 turns just to lift and swing my big sword? Man, I need to hit the gym. Yeah. Or that, or the speed bag or something, get that reflexes, or I don't even know what you would call it. not reflexes so much, just whatever your speed, you are slow. After each round of melee, the players may move other characters than those engaged in actual combat and into position to render assistance. Remember that spells and missiles fired into melee should be considered to strike members of one's own party as well as the enemy. So unlike, I think in OD&D, you just can't. You just can't fire missiles into melee or spells. Here, you can, but you've got basically the same chance of hitting your own. We still don't have really an order, and we still don't know how missile weapons, which we know we now have and are there, but we still don't have that kind of how combat actually works procedure-wise, which is interesting. We're getting all this stuff first, and then are we going to get the actual procedure? I don't know. Who gets the first blow? When two figures are brought into position 10 scale feet or less apart, they may engage in melee. The character with the highest dexterity strikes first. If the dungeon master does not know the dexterity of an attacking monster, he rolls it on the spot. Subject to the limitation of heavy weapons, the two figures exchange blows in turn until the melee is resolved. If dexterities are within 1 to 2 points for each other, a 6-sided die is rolled for each opponent, and the higher score gains initiative first blow. So here's the thing, right? We're not getting a whole procedure. What we're getting is that two figures, two characters, two creatures, whatever, end up kind of close to each other, and then they just go into melee, and then they just do melee until it's resolved. It doesn't seem like there's much gap in there. And between melees, you can move characters around, right? Each round of melee, players who are not in the melee can kind of move. Presumably, they can enter the melee if they want to. Doesn't say so specifically, but remember that. Presumably, after each round of melee, you could potentially fire missiles or spells. We're not told that, but it seems like it. But what we're not getting is there's not a really a global initiative. It's like those two creatures, whoever those first two are, presumably just go in and roll, or maybe multiples. But it's not a time thing. I think the interesting thing here is it's a space thing. It isn't we all see the monster. So, in modern D&D, or not even modern, right? You might say, okay, you see the goblin at 60 feet away, we all roll initiative. Here, it's like you're just playing, but when you get to 10 feet or less apart, then it's like, blam, you're in the melee. And then those two, whoever gets there, so the fighter moves forward, the thing moves forward, then they get close to each other, and it's like, aha, and then they get locked in this melee, which then just starts going. And then in between those, other players can do things, but that melee just goes until it is resolved. Now, what that resolution means, does it mean until someone gets dropped to 0, or somebody decides to quit and flee? Haven't been told, but that's how that one's working out. And everyone else is kind of moving around the melee. You get to kind of move around and do other things. Attackers who surprise an opponent or who approach from behind always get the first blow. Characters who are wounded continue to strike valiantly until they are killed or the melee ends in their favor, unless they choose to break off the combat and flee. So here are two. Here's the resolutions. One side is essentially killed, or the other side, right? Because that's melee ends, or they choose to break off the combat and flee. Presumably surrender also, but here we're not getting surrender. RPG Grandma says that OD&D had a similar take, but had 30 feet instead of 10 feet. That it's kind of, I guess it doesn't matter too much, because presumably you're at 30 feet, you've kind of decided you're running in or running away, so I suppose if both sides run in, you get it. But yeah, kind of interesting differences. If combat is broken off, the fleeing party must accept an attack without any return on his part, the attacker adding +2 to his die roll for hit probability, and the armor class of the fleeing party cannot include a shield. So this is kind of like the fleeing part from... So this comes up in Basic Expert, in that you can either do a defensive withdrawal or you can just turn and run. And this is what happens when you get turn and run. Now, I don't think in BX that they actually get a free attack on you. They just can chase after you and get that bonus. I might have to reread that in BX at some point. That's interesting. So they basically get if you just turn and run, and this doesn't have that sort of defensive backtracking, then yeah, they get that attack of opportunity. Is really, is this the first? Is this in RPG Grandma? Do you know if anybody knows? Is this in OD&D also, this kind of opportunity attack concept, or is this the first time that this gets introduced? You can also parry. A player may elect to have a character parry an attacker's blow. He must announce he's doing so before the opponent strikes. The parry subtracts 2 from the attacker's die roll. The person parrying does not get his next hit using that part of the round for the parry. If the attacker still makes his roll and gets exactly the number needed, the parrying weapon was broken but no damage inflicted. It takes 1 melee round to draw a new weapon, but 1 hanging free or another hand can be employed immediately. So this is a kind of a defensive posture, which is kind of cool. They get a -2, but if they hit exactly what they would need, they don't do damage, but they've broken your weapon. So kind of a cool thing. Melee resolution. So here we go. So we get more in resolution. Conquer, withdraw, surrender, or die! Exclamation point. Character in melee may withdraw from combat if there is space beside or behind him to withdraw into. His opponent gets a free swing, which we saw already, with a +2, and shields don't count because you got your back turned. A losing combatant may offer to surrender. His opponent does not have to accept the offer, of course. Non-human monsters are often too unintelligent to consider such an offer. If an opposing figure is killed or withdraws, the attacker may advance or pursue immediately if the player desires, or you may take some other action. And here we get an example. I love examples of these things. Example numero uno. Bruno the Battler smashes open a dungeon door and is confronted by a big goblin in chainmail armed with a scimitar. Bruno's dexterity is 13 and the goblin's only 9, so the fighting man draws his trusty sword and takes the first swing. Notice we're not rolling for initiative, it's just your dex is better, you go first, which is cool. So, Bruno takes the first swing. He needs a 14, but he rolls an 8, so he misses. The goblin swings at Bruno, who's wearing chainmail and carrying a shield. The goblin rolls a 12. His blow glances off Bruno's shield. Bruno swings again. A 15, gets a hit, rolls a die of damage, a 2. The goblin can take 4 points of hits, so he swings back, rolls a 16, gets a hit. The damage die comes up 3. Bruno can take 6 points of hits, so he is still alive. He makes a desperate swing. A 17, gets a 4 on the 6-side die for damage. The goblin is killed. Huzzah, Bruno. Now, a second example. A party of adventurers is standing in an intersection of corridors when the dungeon master rolls a wandering monster. Using the wandering monster table, he determines the party is being attacked by 6 large spiders with 1+1 hit die each, and they are 100 feet away. Malcor, the magic user, throws a sleep spell, but it only affects 4 of them. The other 2 keep coming. The party decides to fire arrows. The dungeon master rules that only those in the front row have a clear field of fire. Notice there's no initiative here. We're not really in rounds. We're still in this kind of free-flowing response, even though attacks are being made. We're not in initiative. No one's in melee yet. Spiders are, so, it's just they're doing things, we're doing things, which kind of, it kind of acts the same way. We take an action, they take an action, but it's not in initiative. There's no initiative order. We're not checking Malcor's dexterity against someone else's dexterity. We could do that stuff, but they're not doing that yet, right? So the party's firing arrows. Only the one in the front row can do that. The spiders are 50 feet away and coming fast. 2 characters get off arrows from their longbows, and they agree to both shoot at the one on the left. They roll a 3, an obvious miss, and a 15. The spiders are armor class 8. Shield in parentheses. I guess that's just the equivalent. And the range is medium for the longbow. The 15 is a hit and is found to do 4 damage points. The spider's hit die is rolled and comes up a 3+1, equaling 4 hit points. The creature is killed by a lucky arrow hit. The second spider keeps coming. The archers get off 1 more arrow apiece, a 6 and a 9, and the shafts miss. The 2 fighters drop their bows and draw swords as the monsters upon them, biting. So we haven't looked at the monsters' movement rates. It's kind of interesting. They start at 100 feet. And then we don't get how fast they're moving. I'm trying to see if it's actually so 100 feet away. We looked at round 1. Sleep spell gets 2. And then I guess, okay, so then they're moving again. So they move some rate. So I guess maybe it's 25 feet. So it seems like the spiders move 25 feet. It's like next action, arrows. So the spiders are at 75 feet at this point. Okay, now the spiders are at 50 feet. And then another one, it must be another one 25. So I guess the spiders move 25 feet per round. Okay. So the 2 fighters drop their bows. The dungeon master rolls the spider's dexterity, 10. Bruno the Battler has a 13, so he swings first. So remember, it's not until melee that we've actually gone into some kind of initiative order, but here we're just using dex. So Bruno swings first, rolls an 8, a miss. The spider's next, rolls a 6. He needs a 15 against the fighting man's chainmail and shield, and he misses. Mogo the Mighty, I love these names, Dexterity 9, swings last, rolls a 17 to hit. The spider takes 2 points of damage, but can withstand 5, so it keeps fighting. The first round of melee is over, so we were not in rounds until melee. So this idea of melee rounds, right? This is seeming to be actually a thing. It's not a typo or whatnot. Bruno swings again, another miss. The spider strikes 16. Bruno takes 2 points of damage, not enough to kill him, but the spider's bite is poison. I think poisonous, maybe. Bruno rolls a saving throw against poison, fails to make it, and dies a horrible death. Oh, Bruno! No! So it was a save or die poison, and, he missed. The thing is, too, is, like, you take the damage and you still have to make the save. So it's a low-level character. It's kind of rough, because you could just, even if you made your save against poison, potentially you get the damage kills you anyway. And then, yeah, in this case, Bruno, I got the damage, and then the poison kills him. Mogo, attempting to avenge his comrade, strikes again a 6, and the blow glances harmlessly off the spider's armored head. That spider has an armored head. Second round of melee is over. Then the spider rolls a 6 and a 10, both misses, and Mogo rolls a 4 and a 10, and so fails to strike a vital area through the spider's armor. Malcor is pulled back from the combat, and the other members of the party are hurrying forward but have not yet reached the melee. How far away have they been? In the 5th round, the spider makes a hit with a roll of 16 against Mogo's chainmail, does 1 point of damage plus the poisonous bite. Mogo rolls a saving throw of 12, adjusted according to the weak poison of the spider against the poison, so it doesn't affect him. He can take 3 hit points. He just subtracts the 1 point of damage done. He keeps fighting. He swings, misses, however, a 2. 5 melee rounds have gone by when the priestess Clarissa steps over the body of the fallen Bruno. Man, poor little out for Bruno. To join the fray. Her dexterity is only 6, however, so the spider and the fighting man exchange another set of swings without connecting before she can hit. Raising her heavy mace, she deals the giant arachnid a blow of 19, connecting for a damage of 5. The spider falls dead with the side of its head smashed in. That's tough. Okay. All right, here's a comment. This last example illustrates several things. When there is time, or when a magic user says he's getting a spell ready, the spells go off first. This is followed by any missile fire if the distance to the monsters permits, and then melee is joined, after which no missile fire is permitted because of the danger of hitting friendly forces. If a magic user is not involved in the melee, he can get another spell off after 1 or more melee rounds have gone by. If he is personally attacked, he can't concentrate to use his magic, but must draw his dagger and defend his skin. Defend your skin, wizard! However, if the magic user had some magical device, such as a wand or staff, it could be used in lieu of the dagger as an attack weapon. So I think the interesting thing there is that if you have missile and ready magic, the magic will go off first. But in this case, if I go through it, it seems to me that it's not really rounds. They're not using rounds, but if we were to kind of cut it up into rounds, it would seem like the missile weapons went on the next round because the spiders are moving. And just in the flow of it, the way to make the math work that the spiders arrive in melee when they do seems to me they're moving 25 feet per, and that means that when the missile weapons go off, the spiders have moved. RPG Grandma says Bruno will live on the wall of remembrance. Yes. Well, RPG Grandma, thanks for checking it. Just maybe this was just a Holmesian thing, which I think they should have kept. I'm not big on the opportunity attacks, but I think if you just turn and flee, I think that's having them get 1 hit on you, I think is good, especially since once you get out of that into full-fledged chase, the kind of rules shift a little bit, and you get that, and if you don't go into full-fledged chase, then you get that weird, like, can they catch up to you kind of thing. But in this case, they at least get that 1 swipe. And then, but I do like it with the BX part of, if you want to move defensively, you can move back without giving up that kind of that sort of hit, but you've given up 2/3 of your movement or whatever it is, because I think you can only move up a third of your movement. So yeah, I think you give up 2/3 of your movement to do that, but you can back up. It's a nice combo. Whew, all right. So we get some monsters. I don't think I'm going to go through the monsters. Really, I don't know if there's anything interesting in the monsters. I'm sure there's someone who's more knowledgeable than me or could tell you if there's a monster that makes their first appearance in Holmes. I don't know if there is one. We do get we get our dragons. Of the dozens of different kinds found in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, only 4 will be covered here. Well, there you go. Which are, in case you're wondering, white, black, red, and brass. So OD&D, I believe, has gold. Hold on, what does OD&D have? And I think, isn't there another one? Isn't there, is there a rainbow or something? So OD&D dragons get... Oh, somehow I missed it. Here we go. So OD&D dragons, we get white, black, green, blue, red, and golden. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here they dropped green and blue, and golden became brass. But their breath weapon is also different. Their breath weapon is sleep or fear. Brass dragons, golden dragons, it's fire or gas. I want to say BX. Does BX have like another dragon? I don't remember. So there you go. Dragons, doppelgangers, dwarves, elves, gargoyles. Yeah. I'm gonna skip. So we do get some giants, hill giants, stone giants, frost giants, fire giants, cloud giants, and storm giants. I always like the giants. I am not against the giants, actually. I am pro giant. Got our lycanthropes, wereboars, wererats, werebears, weretigers, and of course werewolves. Minotaurs, mummies, owlbears, pegasi, ogres. Anything interesting about ogres? Not really. It doesn't seem like it. Skeletons, of course. And purple worms, of course. Trolls, of course. Unicorns, wights, wraiths, yellow mold. All right, we get treasure. I don't know if there's anything. I'm trying to think if there's anything else remarkable that we go, oh, we really got to talk about this. We got our treasure tables. I'd really like to redo this at some point to make it just more sensible. I really feel like they should either go in some kind of order where you can just kind of go down to get better, or but it goes like you have this and then it gets into these individual ones. I'd like one that I never can grok this just looking at it. It always takes me too long. I wish there was one that just had like an easy scaling to it where I could start at 0 and just go up or down the table and not it kind of change. I never grok the A to whatever, in this case T, I guess, lists. Sample dungeon, Gary says. All right, let me see. Well, if it's in here, we'll do it. So I'm going to, if they have any magic, unless they have any magic sword creation stuff, I'll do that. I'm not going to spend too much time on those either. So we can skip ahead. Okay, we'll do this though. Dungeon mastering. Let's zoom in here. Dungeon mastering is a fine art. Before players can take their bold characters on adventures into the misty, mysterious dungeons, the dungeon master must sit down, pencil in hand, and map out the dungeons on graph paper. There should be several levels, and each level should have access above and below and be made up of interlocking corridors, passages, stairs, closed rooms, secret doors, traps, and surprises for the unwary. The geomorphic dungeon levels provided with this game contain many suggestions and will prove very useful. Geomorphic dungeon levels. What is that referring to? Hold on a minute. Where's the other goodies in my box here? I think I have something. Hold on a minute. And this, what he's referring to, and I'll maybe just switch cameras for a second. Oh, these are all just super faded, but I still got them. All right, hold on a second. Bloop, bloop. You've got these. It's really hard. If you can even see those, this is the geomorphic in mint condition, if I do say so myself. I should scan these, and then I'm sure I have to imagine someone's done this work already. There you go. And yeah, lots of goodies in this box. Did I mention? Hold on a minute. Wasn't it? Because I think there was a version you can get where you end up with getting chits instead of dice, which I know people didn't like. I thought I had a version with chits, but I don't know where the chits are. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm misremembering. All right. Yep, them dungeon geomorphs. Cool stuff if you can. And I'm sure I'll try to scan them in at some point. But I'm like I said, I have to imagine somebody's done that already. And now there's tons of geomorphs, but they're these are kind of cool because they're of the time. So we get a sample cross section of levels on a place called Stone Mountain. We have an entrance. It looks like there's teeth. I see it's got kind of a skull thing here. And I like that we've got a level noted as first up. So outside Great Stone Skull, you can enter through the mouth, which you get at first level. Though there's this first up level. I'm not sure what that means there, but you can get down there. And here's one of the cool things I like that he shows here is we have these different entrances. So yeah, you can go to first up through the eye. So you can decide, you know what, I don't want to go through the mouth. Let's check out the nose. Ew, nothing there. Oh, but the eye, ooh, you can kind of crawl in there. All right. And then you end up on this other level and you can get to the first level that way. You can go in through the main entrance through the mouth, and then you can get up first level and you can keep cruising down levels. But here we have a couple of things to note. We have two different levels. They're both on fourth levels, but they're separated. One, you can get down to level 4A or level 4B. You go to level 4B, you then pass into level 4A and go down, but level 4A. So you get the kind of this split level, or and who knows, what this connector is, but you kind of have the split level thing, and then you have fifth level, sixth level, seventh. And then if you were to happen to scale up over the skull, decide to continue to the top of Stone Mountain, there's the pit, which probably would be hell to get down, and that seems like it's really long. But what the pit allows you to do is bypass all the way down to level 6. So this could be, if you're a first level party with a death wish or something, you can go down this pit and see what happens. But it also means that maybe you're a 6th level party, you come down there, you notice that there is this hole at the top somewhere. And then when you're coming back, instead of having to keep traversing all these levels, you can, at this point, you probably have access to spells, potions, whatever, or just a lot of rope and time. You can bypass and get all the way down to 7th level. And then you get to 6th level, and then you get to 7th level. And then you get, look at that, it's like a whole other world down here with an inner sea, some kind of domed city. So you really get a sense of the kind of that fantastic dungeon, because levels 1 through 4 seem like we're just looking at these very basic, not even cross sections, really basic things, but they're, they look like dungeons, right? Though it looks like they might be, if these could be ramps rather than stairs, because we see here the steps for ramps, and here it looks like there's a vertical drop, and here we get these sloping ramps that lead down, stairs, then natural tunnels, and then so you get a taste of everything, kind of your maybe generic dungeon with worked stone into natural caverns into some massive inner earth hollow world kind of scenario at the bottom. Oh, Bob Mull says, is there intro to D&D? Oh, cool. It would have been cool to play this back in the day. It would have been interesting if I probably wouldn't have changed anything, but I would have thought like, I wonder what it would have been like if I'd started with Holmes rather than BX. I don't know. Oh, you know what? Sorry. I did this before. Sorry about that. I totally forgot to switch back. I've been talking about Stone Mountain. I'm looking at my face. Oh, sorry. It's Friday. All right. Sorry about that. So here you can see Stone Mountain. Yeah, it was confusing about the internet to consult. Yeah, it's one of the things that's just impossible for me. I think if people are going to be honest, I think it's impossible for them also, is to read back these old rules and not bring in all of your D&D knowledge. Because as much as things have changed, even if you started with, say, 5th edition, a lot of stuff is still kind of the same. And then you can use all your whatever D&D knowledge you have for almost any edition, you can kind of backfill to kind of understand. I think it's really hard to imagine what it would have been like from my perspective is if someone just handed me the white box or handed me Holmes and I had no other experience. And that's it. This is it. I mean, you can do that now. Take somebody who has no idea what a role-playing game is, says, here, just read these 3 little brown books, or here, read this blue book and see what you make of it. But I can't imagine what that is, because you can read stuff and, okay, you're like, all right, this is interesting, but I always have that well of just experience, whatever, that I can look at here. They don't have that. So anyway, sorry. So here is my Stone Mountain where I was going over about the skull and different entrances and all that stuff. And now you can actually see it. And this is really fun that there's basically a whole other fantastic world that you get to at the bottom of it. Very evocative. I just like how it shows these concepts of multiple entrances, some of them bypassing different levels, different kinds of things. Your kind of generic dungeon to naturalistic kind of caverns to just total fantastic Atlantean whatever's going on down there. RBG Grandma says the Dome City should be watertight because Blackmore teaches us that water level can go up and down. Maybe not there. Maybe that water is stable. Maybe they got a good pumping system. All right, so here we go. Sample floor plan, part of the first level. Okay, so do we have a map? Let me see. Let me go back to my book. Is there a map we can consult here, or is there not? Or where is the map? Oh, here. Is this the chits? Oh, it might have been this one that's got it. These stickers kind of things. I don't even remember. I can't remember. Let me just look. Let me put that aside for right now. Where? Let's see. Do we have... Oh, we do have an illustration. All right, let me see if I can do this. Hold on a minute. Okay, let me open this with... Can I do this? All right, so here's... Sorry, I'm just going to move this over here. So I'm going to try to get down to the map. Okay, here we go. And then... All right. What is it giving me? No, I'm not sure. Stop that. Yeah, I want the palm. There we go. So we've got the map over here. I think this is the right map. Sample floor plan, part of the first level. Oh, nice. Gary says he ran his boy through the dungeon using his rules for his first adventure. Cool. How did he do? That sounds awesome. Each new room or area is given a code number and a record made on a separate page of what it contains: treasure, monsters, hidden items, etc. Place a few special items first, then randomly assign treasure and monsters to the other rooms using the selection provided in the game or appropriate tables. Many rooms should be empty. Roll a 6-sided die for each room. On a roll of 1 or 2 indicates that some monster is there. Ochre jellies, green slime, black puddings, etc. are randomly distributed, usually without treasure, most often in corridors and passageways. Wandering monsters are usually determined randomly as the game progresses. Traps should not be of the zap you're dead variety, but those which a character might avoid or overcome with some quick thinking and a little luck. Falling into a relatively shallow pit would do damage only on a roll of 5 or 6, which is cool. So you fall into that pit, you make a roll, and then if you roll 1 through 4, you actually don't get damage. You just fall into the pit. Gary says he did well with some really close calls. That's awesome. But we'll delay the party while they get the trapped character out. Hidden rooms, movable walls, teleportation devices, illusion rooms, dead ends, etc. make interesting variations. Since the game and the dungeons are limited only by the imagination of the dungeon master and the players, there is no end to the variation possible. Try to keep the dangers appropriate to the levels of the characters and the skill of your players. The possibility of quote-unquote death must be very real, but the players must be able to win through with luck and courage, or they will lose interest in the game and not come back. Once the game begins, try to keep the action moving at a dramatic pace. If the going gets rough, the rough get going? Or is it the going gets, what's the Billy Ocean song? And the going gets tough, tough get going. If the going gets rough, then the rough get tough. I don't remember. A little shout out to, what was that, Jewel of the Nile? No. Romancing the Stone was the first one. Hey, my ear trumpet, thanks so much. Once the game begins, okay, yeah, the going gets rough, right. The characters have the option of turning around and going back to the surface. If time runs out, the characters can always be left at some appropriate spot within the dismal depths, time suspended, and the action taken up again another day. So not the one-to-one time. Holmes is not... I don't have anything against one-to-one time, but here it is. Holmes is giving you permission. If you run out of time in your session, you can pause and then pick it up later on. Nothing awful has to happen. You don't have to do anything. Obviously, this is appealing to a different sort of player than the kind of gaming groups where I think it makes most sense in those situation, that kind of organizational play to get everybody back to town first. But here it is. You are fine. 1977. It's okay to suspend time in the dungeon and pick it up the next week. You're good. Dramatize the adventure as much as possible. Describe the scenery. If any, non-player characters should have appropriate speech. Orcs are gruff and ungrammatical. Knights talk in flowery phrases and always say thou rather than you. Always, knights. Always. When characters swear, they call on the wrath of their appropriate deities, be it Zeus, Crom, Cthulhu, or whatever. By Crom! The dramatic talents of the Dungeon Master should be used to their fullest extent. It adds to the fun. One player should map the dungeon from the Dungeon Master's descriptions as the game progresses. This is easiest done if he uses a piece of graph paper marked northeast, southwest, with the entrance to the dungeon level drawn in near the center. One of the players should keep a quote-unquote chronicle of the monsters killed, treasures obtained, etc. This is a great thing, right? The chronicler. There you go, 1977, chronicler. Another should act as a caller. I think the caller is something probably the more well-known of these. Well, the mapper, right? We have mapper, caller, chronicler. Another should act as a caller and announce to the Dungeon Master what action the group is taking. Both mapper and caller must be in the front rank of the party. This is interesting. So you cannot be sitting in the back row as the mapper. So that kind of lowers the number of I would probably scrap the mapper caller being in the front, just because if you're the magic user and you're like you as a player are a good caller, but you're playing a magic user, you have to be in the front rank. But it is interesting. Same for the mapper. I guess the idea is the mapper seeing things first, then drawing it out, but I'd probably let them move back. RPG Grandma says they ban graph paper unless rewarded by them in game for some reason. Interesting. I give them the graph paper because you kind of need. I mean, I guess maybe you don't need it, but I give them graph paper. If the adventurers have a leader, the caller would logically be that player. So in this case, which I guess is interesting, they're making a fictional a connection between the caller, who is this meta or I guess meta role for a player, and also the party leader. And that seeming to indicate that the caller is not just a player telling the GM what other players are doing, but is actually in the fiction. You imagine they're actually calling out, "You go there, you go there." So that's kind of cool. Because I never really made that connection before, that the caller is someone special or has a role fictionally as opposed to just on the kind of meta player management level. All right, example. So here let's get some examples going. So example, DM. You're in a stone corridor, 10 feet wide by 15 feet high, running north-south. Caller, we're walking north. DM, 50 feet up along the corridor, there's a door in the east wall. It's 5 feet wide. Caller says, halfling will listen at the door. Yo, halfling, get up here. Oh, I like that, halfling. I've got a name. Shut up. DM, he knows there's nothing they can hear, but he carefully rolls a concealed die. He doesn't hear anything. Aha, so you don't know, right? The roll behind, and this I think is a key thing that often, this is one thing, unfortunately, that happens when you put a lot of the player-facing roles, is you lose that element of not knowing. Like, you don't hear anything, but you don't know it's because you failed the roll, or you don't know if it's because you made the roll and there was nothing there. You just don't hear anything. Zach Wolf says they love the Tower of Xenopus. Yep, that's a fun one. RPG Grandma says they love seeing their maps after the adventure. Yep, that's also fun. All right, so halfling doesn't hear anything. So the caller says the fighting man will open the door. He's got his sword out, ready to strike. The halfling and the thief are right behind him. So we don't even know who's who now. And the interesting thing here is the caller isn't just putting general things. He's putting the whole deal out there. So, all right, DM rolls a 2. The door bursts open. You see a room, L-shaped, 20 feet wide. Do we know where they are? Where are they starting? Where's A? They go... No, wait, they couldn't have gone there. Where did they start? Hold on a minute. Where's the L-shaped room? Am I looking at the right map? This might not be the right map. All these rooms are, except for this one, but they're going north, so they wouldn't be hitting this room. Where could they go north into an L-shaped room? All right, well, I'll just keep the map up because I'm guessing it comes up for something else. Oh, RPG Grandma says that they hire a mapper from the guild, will they get better maps? Oh, interesting. Intriguing. All right, so DM rolls a 2, door bursts open, L-shaped, 20 feet wide. From the door, it runs due east 30 feet or so feet, and then another leg of the L runs north. They must enter and carefully examine to map a room. So they can't just do everything from the door. They got to come in and actually check it out. You don't see anyone in the room in front of you. Anything else in the room? Some trash along the walls, a small wooden chest on the floor in the middle of the room. Aha! The fighting man and the halfling will enter the room. The dwarf will hold the door. The others will watch the corridor. Okay. And now we get to player. Is the player not the caller? Oh, I see. So the player, I guess, who's playing the halfling says that the halfling says, careful, maybe booby trapped. Caller then says the fighter kicked the chest with his boot. I don't know. If that was my character, I might be like, hey now. A little shenanigan here. The halfling said it might be trapped, and then you just had my fighter kick the chest. Like, I'm taking away your caller rights over my character. DM says it is knocked over. The lid comes open. 1,000 gold pieces spill out. Caller says, good, the fighter. And then the DM says, around the corner come 4 orcs. Surface dwellers, kill them, cut them to mincemeat, pound them to hamburger. Caller says the fighting man is ready. He swings. An 18. It's a hit. Roll your damage. Rolls a 6-sided die. A 4. He's dead. You cut him in half. Second orc is on you. He swings. And then the fight continues until all 4 orcs lie dead. Notice that here we didn't even do the checking of the dexterity or the distances or anything. They just kind of played it loosey-goosey, which is fine. But it's interesting because this is an example of play. So I might imagine they might want to give you, a true, not a true, I would say, a very regimented, like, here's how you would play using all the things we've just gone over. But in this case, they don't. And it works fine, right? The 4 orcs come in. They're pretty close. They got to be kind of 30 feet or less away. Fighter runs in there. They don't let them fight. You don't need to monkey about with doing everything. There's no, if it's not worthwhile checking it. We don't know how many characters got into it, obviously, in the melee, but, you just enter it in and start swinging it, and that works just fine. Let's see. Oh, Mac is checking the map to see which room. It must be a different map. Yeah. I think, but there's no room that really fits, but maybe maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. I don't know which room would be the L-shaped room that matches up going north. You can't go north into this room. And I don't know where the orcs are coming from. I suppose they could have been hanging around the L, but it just doesn't work. I don't know. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so going back to this, so the 4 orcs are dead. We search the other half of the room. Everybody fill your packs and pockets with the gold. I love gold. The other half of the room is the same dimensions as the first one, 40 feet. You find 4 bunks, a table, and benches. Search for more treasure. Nope, nothing of value. How about the doors? No doors in either part of the room. Unless this is flipped upside down. I don't know. The elf and the dwarf will search for secret doors. The rest of the party comes into the room and we shut the door. The halfling will stay at the door and listen. I haven't seen this done before. This is intriguing, right? So they shut the door behind them and then have the elf listen at the door. So listening back into the corridor. That's kind of an interesting. Or is literally room L, but it is an L room. Well, this can't be room L because room L has some funky stuff going on, like an underground river maybe or something, and that would clearly not. So no, it can't actually be room labeled L. Okay, so let's see. After determining which part of the room is being searched, he rolls a secret die. The elf finds a secret door in the northernmost 10-foot wall section in the eastern half of the L. Yeah, it just can't be this. There's no secret doors here, and these are both labeled E. And this is E. I don't know what these mean then. I don't know. I don't know what these. I was thinking they were just labeled A, whatever, but no, there's multiple E's. There's how many E's are there in this map? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. I don't know where we are. Oh, E is empty. Is that it? So what is N? N, A. What is G? E means empty room. All right. Okay. So here it is. E is empty. F is the magic user's room. I see. So E repeats. Yes, this is why I like the numbers. Just give me the numbers. Yeah, that's just asking to be confused. Confusing. Okay. Does he hear any? So, all right. So they're doing this. Caller says, does he hear anything? Looking for another one. It makes another wandering monster roll? Nope, but the hobbit guarding the door reports hearing slithering noises outside. Hey, everybody, I hear slithering noises outside. Caller says, let the elf try to open his secret door. Halfling, spike the door of yours shut. It's a nice use of a spike. If you're wondering what the spikes are for, you read this example, you'll get it. Elf opens the secret door. It's a dark passage, only 3 feet wide, running straight north. See anything? Passage is empty as far as you can see. So wait a minute. Hold on. If we keep looking at this, is there anywhere, where there might be a secret door? Oops, right, wrong. Am I missing? Where would the secret door be? Okay, regular door. That's a secret door. That doesn't seem regular. Goodness, I do not know. Retreat cost says, or hard mode equals encounters. I mean, yeah. Who knows? Well, I mean, it does say. I mean, okay, so they do tell us, but it's just a weird. Just give me the numbers where each room has its own number, and I don't have to try to figure out what I'm, make it a little bit easier on us here, or just blank. If the other thing would be if there's nothing in it, just don't put any kind of designation. It is empty. But I would imagine that I don't know. I would imagine that even with empty, I'd want to have some description, but maybe I'm just thinking ahead into the future when they do change it to the way that I'm used to. And if maybe I would have gotten used to this, it would have made total sense to me. All right, so here we go. So see anything? Passage is empty as far as you can see with his infravision. Right, with his infravision. Okay, everybody, into the secret passage. In what order? Elf in front, fighter behind, dwarf will close the door and bring up the rear. You've proceeded north 100 feet when the elf comes to a stop. What's the matter? He sees a gelatinous cube filling the passage 60 feet ahead. So here's interesting because it's not even, no chance of surprise for the poor gelatinous cube or a chance that it's just invisibly moving. It's like, nope, you see it. Caller says, crumbs, devils! Somebody get a torchlight. Dwarf, go back to the door and listen for noises in the room we just left. Dwarf says there's a hollow space under the floor here somewhere. And the caller says, okay, elf. Squeeze back down the corridor and see if you can find a trapdoor. Where's that torch? Here it is. Says somebody. And then the DM ominously says the gelatinous cube begins to slide slowly down the passage towards you. Bum, bum, bum. And then we get a note. This example could be played with maps and pencil and paper. If miniature figures are used, they can be arranged in battle order on the tabletop, and the movement through passages and rooms imagined, the pieces rearranged for combat or other changes of formation. Figures are available for all the character types of Dungeons & Dragons, as well as for most of the monsters, available at a friendly local gaming store near you. Obviously, the success of an expedition depends on the dungeon master and his creation, the dungeon. Many gamesters start with a trip across country to get to the entrance to the dungeon, a trip apt to be punctuated by attacks by brigands or wandering monsters or marked by strange and unusual encounters. The party then enters the underworld, tries to capture the maximum treasure with minimal risk and escape alive. I mean, that's a good summary. You go in the underworld, try to capture the maximum treasure with the minimal risk and escape alive. All right, so that definitely has made it across the generations to the kind of OSR mindset of get in, get the most you can get with the minimal risk, and get out. Hey, Mac, take it easy. Thanks for hanging out. The Dungeon Master should have all this completely mapped out. Hit points and attack die rolls calculated and recorded so that the game will proceed most rapidly at the exciting moments when the enemy is encountered. Do not hesitate to have lawful or helpful characters chance by at times. Your adventures may need a little help. All right, so we get some other stuff, Dungeons and Dragons. We get some kind of Appendix N information, Middle Earth, Robert Howard, Fritz Lieber, Gardner Fox, classic mythology, and many other sources. A final word to the Dungeon Master from the authors. These rules are intended as guidelines. No two Dungeon Masters run their dungeons quite the same way, as anyone who has learned the game with one group and then transferred to another can easily attest. You are sure to encounter situations not covered by these rules, improvise, agree on a probability that an event will occur, and convert it to a die roll. Roll the number and see what happens. The game is intended to be fun, and the rules modified if the players desire. Do not hesitate to invent, create, and experiment with new ideas. Imagination is the key to a good game. Enjoy. Well, those are also some wise words, right? Make the game your own. These are guidelines. Do with them what you will. Do not be held captive by them. So now, the final elements of this read, I think. The sample dungeon, Tower of Xenopus. Background. 100 years ago, the sorcerer Xenopus built a tower on the low hills overlooking Portown. The tower was close to the sea cliff west of the town and appropriately next door to the graveyard. Rumor has it that the magician made extensive cellars and tunnels underneath the tower. The town is located on the ruins of a much older city of doubtful history, and Xenopus was said to excavate in his cellars in search of ancient treasures. 50 years ago, on a cold wintry night, the wizard's tower was suddenly engulfed in green flame. Green flame! Several of his human servants escaped the Holocaust, probably a poor choice of words, saying their master had been destroyed by some powerful force he had unleashed in the depths of the tower. Needless to say, the tower stood vacant for a while after this, but then the neighbors and the night watchmen complained that ghostly blue lights appeared in the windows at night, that ghastly screams could be heard emanating from the tower at all hours, and goblin figures could be seen dancing on the tower roof in the moonlight. Finally, the authorities had a catapult rolled through the streets of the town, and the tower was battered to rubble. This stopped the hauntings, but the townsfolk continued to shun the ruins. The entrance to the old dungeons can be easily located as a flight of broad stone steps leading down into darkness, but the few adventurous souls who have descended into crypts below the ruins have either reported only empty stone corridors or have failed to return at all. Other magic users have moved into the town, but the site of the old tower remains abandoned. Whispered tales are told of fabulous treasures and unspeakable monsters in the underground passages below the hilltop, and the storytellers are always careful to point out that the reputed dungeons lie in close proximity to the foundations of the older, pre-human city, to the graveyard, and to the sea. Portown is a small but busy city linking the caravan routes from the south to the merchant ships that dare the pirate-infested waters of the northern sea. Humans and non-humans from all over the globe meet here. At the Green Dragon Inn, players of the game gather their characters for an assault on the fabulous passages beneath the ruined wizard's tower. So we get a nice intro with a bunch of info and backstory. We're also put right into the mix. You're at the inn, meet in the tavern, but your goal is already established. It's not, oh, we're in the tavern, and what do we do? And oh, here's a wizard tower. Nah, or whatever. It's like, no, you're here, and you're gathered to assault it. It's already set. You're doing it. You're just in the prep stages. But some nice stuff. And I think I would just read this to the players. I don't think there's anything here particularly GM facing. We're all talking about information that's all publicly known and been passed around. The Dungeon Master should read the background material above to the assembled players, like I just said, and then let them decide how they will proceed. Because of the nature of some of the traps in the dungeon, it is highly recommended that no one attempt it alone. If only one player is taking his or her character into the dungeon, the Dungeon Master should recommend employing one or more men-at-arms. These non-player characters can then be rolled up and hired out for a share of the treasure. This is kind of your, hireling type deal. The stairway from the surface leads 25 feet straight down and ends in the corridor marked Start on the Dungeon Master's map, which is right there. So yeah, this map was not for the sample dungeon example, but for this one. And now we get the room descriptions. This is a large room, 120 feet by 100 feet. There are doors in the east, west, and south wall. The room is furnished with rough tables and benches and as many, skipping through here, as many beds as there are occupants. The occupants are goblins. There are at least 3 goblins. The Dungeon Master should increase the number of goblins if the party of adventurers is a large one, i.e. if more than 3 are in the party, have 5 goblins, more than 5, 7 or 8 goblins, etc. The goblins wear leather armor and carry swords and daggers. They can each take one 8-sided die of hits minus 1 point, i.e. roll a regular hit die, subtract 1, the result is the goblin's hits. If 1 is rolled, do not subtract. If half their number is killed, the others will try to escape through one of the doors or surrender. If surrender is accepted, the captured goblins will offer to lead the party to a treasure, but will, in reality, try to guide them to one of the dangerous trap rooms and then run. Okay. Whew. Zach Wolf says, I appreciate that there is no hiring fee for the hirelings, and they just get a share of the treasure. Makes it so even level 1 characters can hire them. That's true. That is absolutely true. And yeah, that share, especially if you're a lone adventurer, is maybe not as high a cost. Whereas if you're already splitting it by 5 and then you're cutting more shares, it feels like you're getting less and less of the pie. In this case, you're still doing well, and you're only one character, so any help you get is kind of almost necessary. You need the help. You need it. All right, look, here we go. Continuing on. There are small wooden chests under each bed and several leather sacks hanging on pegs along the wall. Most of the sacks contain junk, dirty clothes, old bones, etc., but 2 contain coins, 500 silver pieces each. There are several cloaks hanging on pegs, and in a pocket of one cloak, there is a magical potion of growth in a glass vial. One of the chests contains an additional 2,000 copper pieces, but the chest is booby-trapped, and an opening releases a cloud of and an opening releases a cloud of sleep gas, filling an area 6 by 6 by 6 feet. Anyone within this area who fails to make his saving throw against poison falls deeply asleep for a number of turns. The Dungeon Master determines the exact number of turns of unconsciousness by secret roll of a 6-sided die, subtracting a 1 if the character has a high constitution. Okay, so now that's room A. So, so I guess something interesting note. We started here. Room E was empty, so it doesn't even get any kind of description. It's just empty. And then we get into this A room. And now, just interesting from a layout perspective, starting back at C, that first was going, I guess we'd say, west. Now the next room we're getting is going south to B. This is a 50 by 50 foot room with a north door and an open door at the south end. The 4 deep niches in the walls can be seen from the north doorway, but they are covered with cobwebs and nothing can be seen within them. The room is totally dark, and the floor is covered with an inch of undisturbed dust. There are 4 skeletons in the niches. They do not attack unless someone advances over 10 feet into the room. Then they all rush out and attack until destroyed or turned away. First level cleric must roll a 7 or more with 2 6-sided dice to turn them, and then make a 7 roll to see how many are turned away. If turned, they run out the door at the end of the room, furthest from the cleric. There is no treasure in this room. So they just go running out, la 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 la, into another empty room. It's got some bunch of doors in them. But I guess they can open doors. Or I guess that door's, so the door in the south of B looks like it's actually open. So I guess it's a open question if the skeletons, if they get turned running into the empty room, will open further doors, or if they'll just cower in a corner somewhere. Now, where's room C, which is next on our list? So we had A, we got B, then we get P. Where the heck is C? Oh, C is an empty corridor. That's weird, because C is right at the entrance, but it's not A, even though it's the first thing you're going to hit. In any case, C is an empty corridor. All corridors in this dungeon are 10 feet wide and 10 feet high. The Magic User Secret Corridor, S to F, is 5 feet by 5 feet. Remember that at the end of 3 turns, a wandering monster might appear. Corridors are likely places for this to happen. That is just weird, because you want them to see this the first thing they read. I suppose I should have known to look at C and then gone down to C, but still, why not make that A? Just makes too much sense. Too much sense for this dungeon. Now we go to D. And where is D? All right, I see A, I see B, C is there. Oh, D is, okay, all the way down here. Oh, not all the way. So we have, go down from B, get into the empty room. So we go south. So we start off at the start. We turn and go south to the room B, skeleton's room. Then we keep going south through the open door into E, which is empty. Then we have some different options, but were we to go west through a long corridor, there are 2 empty rooms in kind of the middle, off through doors, basically midway through that corridor, but they're both empty. Then we're to continue going. Then we get to D, which looks like it has something inside of it. Nope, it's not check every 2. Yep, they've got check every 3. So D, an almost empty room with a 6-foot tall stone statue in the center. There's a door in the middle of each wall, north, south, east, and west. The statue is facing the door by which the party just entered. I don't know if it's supposed to be magical or what, because you can enter this room. a couple different ways, but whatever way they enter, the statue's facing them, which is an interesting piece of intel. Doors to this room always open from the outside, but at the same time, the statue will rotate on its base to face the opening door. All right, so it is an actual trick. Once it's been opened, the door starts to slowly shut, activated by a powerful spring in the hinges. It will stay open to allow the party to enter. The door opens outward into the corridor. It doesn't say whether it's, well, let me read. There might be more. I wonder if it doesn't say if it's particularly hard to get back open or not. From inside the room, all doors are firmly held shut except the one the statue is facing. That door can be easily opened. To open any door, then, the statue must be rotated on its base. It turns easily until it faces the door. Then the door opens easily. Doors cannot be forced open. They are held by the equivalent of a wizard lock. Woohoo! This is a cool little puzzle, actually, I have to say. So you open the door, enter the room, statue's facing you. You all come in, door slowly closes behind you, and you can open that door again. All right, it's easy. But then you try to open the other doors, and it's stuck. And you're at first level. You don't have, I don't know when you get knock or anything like that. They will not open. But it's a cool little puzzle, and it's not like it's some kind of trap in a sense, because you can always just leave. And we've got some, what would we call it? I don't know if I'd call it full-fledged jacazing, but we've definitely got loops here where you have multiple ways of getting this room. There are multiple ways to get this other room. So you're not absolutely stuck. It's not a puzzle that you must solve to proceed. You just then have to leave and go other ways to get around. But it's a fun one because when you make that connection, maybe of the statue facing you, or maybe can we turn it, then no rolls necessary. You just turn it and get out the doors you want. So I really like that. I like it a lot, actually. Okay, so here we do have the note about the E rooms. Room E is always an empty room. The size of the rooms, the number of doors is variable as shown on the Dungeon Master's map. So it's like they did this to kind of just, I guess, save space, so they could just use this one description for all the E rooms. But I think nowadays we still like some kind of, well, what is the room? Because this doesn't tell you anything. It's just empty. Like, it's literally just bare. So this is where having a little handy dandy table or something else to generate, or what's in the room or what the flavor of the room is, would be kind of nice. All right, so that was, so we get, where's F? F is down here. So this was, if we'd come through B and kept going south, we'd get to F. This is a magic user's room. This is a magic user's room. He is an evil thaumaturgist, 4th level, who has been trying to take over the dungeon level. The room is 50 feet by 60 feet. There is a large door in the south wall and a smaller one in the north wall. The magic user himself is standing behind a work table in the southwest corner. Near him is a 2nd level fighting man whom he holds under a charm spell. Actually, this man is one of the smugglers from the sea cave whose curiosity allowed him to wander too far into the underground. The fighter is basically neutral but will attack fiercely on command from the magic user. Armor class 5, he carries a magic +1 sword. He wears a jeweled belt, stolen, with rubies worth 1,000 gold pieces. The note about it being stolen is interesting because what's the party supposed to do with that information? Is this so that later on somebody can run up saying, that's my belt? Because, I just imagine they say he's a smuggler, so just presume that stuff is kind of black market or gray market at best material, but it's just kind of funny. The note, it's stolen. Like, all right, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do with that info? Retreat Cost says, I wonder if the empty rooms with no description were meant to lead to a quicker playstyle, or if everyone searched every one of them and looked for traps and secrets, ... Yes, I think the playstyle is definitely faster, and yes, I think by just saying it's empty, you do move things along. I still like if there's just a little bit something like, hey, this used to be a storeroom, but it's empty. Or, oh, hey, you see marks on the floor. Or, oh, hey, you can see where there used to be a bed or something. Just a little something. But yes, it definitely eases up and focuses play when you can just open the door and say, it's empty. Because you can get that slowdown of like they're searching 10 feet every room because it seems super interesting. So there definitely is some usefulness to having some rooms with just minimal description, just so that the party doesn't get wrapped up in every single room. And also empty rooms can be useful because you can find one to try to close to take a break, or do something if you need to prep something, or just hide out. You can hide out in there. But I just like if you can give me a little something to make it feel a little more lived in than it's just all these bare rooms. Because also think about, which I think is more of a modern concern of like, well, someone made this room, they carved this room out of the rubble and the rock. It's like they had to be something. But it is a style thing for sure. Zach Wolf says, I feel like it's a justification for this random second level fighter having a jeweled belt. Oh, maybe that's stolen. Yeah. I mean, sure. I don't know if anyone's I feel like that's the least of your concerns at this point. But yes, I suppose it's just telling you just to have his flavor that it's stolen. Sure. But it kind of like just that thing just seems to, I guess that little note is just, I just, maybe if it was just more, I mean, this is a sample dungeon, right? This is a little thing to get you started. I guess if this were more of a fleshed out thing, I feel like that's a nice little hook for something. Because it is kind of an interesting bit if you were to take this off, you're the fighter, haha, and I take the belt and I wear it, and then you get recognized or called out. You go back to the smugglers, and maybe the smugglers like, hey, why are you wearing Jim's belt? They're like, there's some cool stuff you could do with it. It's just really, it's way beyond the scope of what they're doing here to have that. But it's a fun little, right? It's a fun little teaser almost of directions you could go with that particular item. Okay, the thaumaturgist, 4th level magic user, knows 6 spells: read magic, charm person, magic missile, protection from good, as he's lawful evil, wizard lock, and web. He carries a scroll of levitation. When caught in this room, he will A, direct the fighter to attack, and B, try to exit through the secret door behind him. While doing this, there is a 50% chance that he will drop the magic scroll. If magic is thrown at him, his saving throw is better than that of magic users of the 3rd level. Add +1 to his saving throw score. If he can get out the door, he will put a wizard lock on it and run up the stairs to his tower. The rest of room F is occupied by 3 stone statues of men. They are men turned to stone by the magic user with a special wand, which he has in his tower. He will use the wand on anybody entering his hideaway. Ooh, okay, so that is S, I think. Running up to his tower. So he comes out. I don't see the secret door. Where's the secret door? F is the wizard's room, right? We're in this room, magic user's room. He's in behind the desk table in the southwest corner. So he's here. Interesting. They don't note this as secret. Did they say it was a secret? Or am I just reading too much into it? Yeah, it says try to exit through the secret door behind him, but it's actually not marked as a secret. So I guess that's a typo. That should be a secret door, and then he's going to run up into his tower. And if you try to follow him, he's going to go try to grab he's going to wizard lock that, and then get his hole up in here and get his wand ready. Okay, cool. All right. So where we get G, gloomy, piles of rock and rubbish, 4 feet, 4 piles of rocks and rubbish 4 feet high cover the floor. There is a door in the center of every wall except the north wall. That's not actually true unless we're counting this door way down here as part of room G. I guess they are. There are 2 to 8 giant rats in the room. They are hiding in shadows and not easily seen. An elf or dwarf might spot them on a roll of, say, 1 or 2 on a 6-sided die. They will attack if the room's entered. The rats are armor class 7, have 2 hit points each, and have a treasure. Concealed in a mass of old bones, chewed leather straps, and bits of armor in its nest is a belt attached to which is a silver dagger with a 50 gold piece value, in a sheath, and a bag containing 50 electrum pieces. It takes a turn of careful searching in the refuse to come up with these things. Nice little bit there. Let's see. So that's room G. Where's room H? Here we go. So we get room H, which seems to be bisected by, I'm guessing, an underground river, but it might be something else. But it looks like there's an arrow here, which seems to be showing a current, and that current would be kind of southwesterly. All right, H, a room 80 feet by 50 feet with doors in the north and south walls. There is a river running through the room 50 feet wide. It enters and exits through holes in the east and west walls with less than a foot of airspace over the water. The channel is 10 feet deep and the current is swift. Anyone falling in will be swept away unless he has a strength of 15 or better. Men in metal armor will sink to the bottom if they fall in. They may be able to shed their armor, 50% chance, in 1 turn and get to the surface. The current will deposit anyone swept away in room K at the end of a turn. Being dragged under the rock wall between rooms is dangerous. Anyone with a constitution of 12 or better will survive unhurt. Others run a 50% chance of taking a die of damage from drowning. So something just here to note, I guess in general, is we're seeing much more attribute importance. Like that having high dex in combat, it's just flat out. It's not a bonus to a roll. It's just flat out you're going to go first. So you have a dex of 17, let's say. You're probably going to go first in most combats you enter for your entire career, which is pretty strong. In this case, too, we've got this current dragging people around. If you have 12 or better, you don't have to get damaged. If you don't, you have to roll 50% chance of taking a die or not. A die of damage, which I'm guessing is a 1d6, not just 1 point of damage, but a die of damage. That's not a small deal either. So kind of an interesting shift, because when you get to BX and beyond, you get much less reliance on your attributes. I might like if you could do something like swap your level, or do something with your level instead of your attribute. Something like that might be a nice different way to do this. I'm not sure, but it's kind of cool. It definitely gets some rewards for having those high ability scores, which I go back and forth on, because it is kind of, there's a fair random chance on what you get. So I like when you have some things that you get out of it, but it's not super indicative of things throughout your career. I like that your kind of class levels take over. But this certainly, if you were to build stuff using this as a model, there seems to be much more of rewards for having high scores. Zach says contextual benefits for certain ability thresholds rather than checks. Yes, which is nice because it goes fast. Because you can just say, hey, is your con over 12? Or 12 or better? Yes, you're good. No, you're not. You don't have to do rolls for that stuff. Zach Wolf says it reminds him of Bethesda-style skill requirements for certain dialogue. Oh yeah, that's true. Now, room I, which is south of room H. Doors in the north, south, and east walls give entrance to this room. In the center of the room is a bronze sundial on a low pedestal. Set into the stone of the west wall is a bronze mask about the size of a manhole cover. The eyes and mouth are shut. Below the mask, in common language, is an inscription. I'll answer questions. One, no more. I never speak till it before. Ooh, got a little riddle there. The magic is activated by shining the light of a single torch, lantern, etc. on the sundial, so the shadow of the Naman, I don't know what that is, but I'm guessing that's part of the sundial, that part, the angular triangle bit. So the shadow falls on the Roman numeral 4. The bronze mask then opens its eyes and says, speak, I'll answer. It will give a reasonable answer to any brief, pertinent question and then say, I've answered one. Now go away. I will not speak again today. It's also a poet. Since the shadow has to be held on 4, there is little chance of triggering the magic accidentally, even by walking around the sundial with a light. Jason says, oh, talking to RPG Grandma. Don't mind me, Jason. Hey, Frederick. Frederick says, Zach the DM can have a lot of fun with hirelings on a profit share contract. For example, rival party offers more shares to NPC with great stats. That's cool, but how does that rival party know that NPC has great stats, Frederick? I feel like there's a little metagaming going on there. I don't know that. I mean, I suppose your strength could be bursting out of your armor, but, a little shifty there. All right, now we have room L. Another cave with the river running through it. There is phosphorescent fungus growing on the rocks, so anyone can see without lights. There are east and west entrances on both sides of the river to the sandy beach. The river is only 3 to 4 feet deep at the center of the channel and can be forded. There is a giant crab concealed under the sand on the south beach. It will attack anything that moves on either beach. It runs 60 feet in one turn, in armor class 3, and takes 2 hit dice. It strikes with its giant claws one at a time as fast as a man. Clap, clap. Zach says that they interpreted that as rival adventures offer more money to your hirelings, which is a fun idea. Yes, I do like that. I don't know if I love the idea of them cherry picking the best stats. But, I can see how if you interpret your stats as being super visible, then sure. But I don't tend to look at them as being like your crazy buff if you have a strength of, I don't know, less than 17 or 18. I'm not sure. I've never really thought about it, but I like them. They'd have to take their chances with who looks the best. Maybe, obviously, if they're wearing the best equipment and they seem to be in the best, I don't know, sort of shape, I can see that, but I don't know that I would want to have them like literally dig up the stats and cherry pick that way. So room M is a large sea cave with entrances to the north and south. There is a sandy beach on which are drawn up 2 rowboats. The entrance to the sea is to the west about 500 feet. If it is day up above, the cave will be dimly illuminated by sunlight coming through the tunnel. If it is night, torches in the hands of the occupants will shed a dim glow. The cave is used by smugglers and pirates. There are 4 pirates present now, sitting in one of the boats, talking. They are normal men, armor class 7, and are armed with cutlasses. And here we have a parenthetical. At the dungeon master's discretion, he may increase the number of pirates. Each pirate carries 2 to 12 gold pieces in his purse. The pirates use the cave to hide treasure, and there are chests in the first boat and a prisoner in the second boat. Every turn, there's a 25% chance of another boatload of 2 to 5 pirates rowing in. The prisoner is a girl, Lamunda the Lovely, whose father is a powerful lord in the city above. Lamunda is a good fighter in her own right and carries a concealed dagger in her girdle, but right now she is bound and gagged. She is lying in the bottom of the second boat, not the one occupied by the pirates. Her family would be very grateful to get her back. We get some stats for Lamunda the Lovely. The treasure is in 2 chests in the first boat. One chest contains 2,000 silver pieces, the other 1,000 electrum pieces, and 12 gems each worth 100 gold pieces. Exit from the underground can be made by rowing out to the sea, although there is a possibility of meeting another boat coming in. There's a large octopus at the bottom of the sea cave, 3 hit dice, armor class 7, which will attack boats. The pirates always throw the monster a large fish or the body of one of their victims, so it does not attack their boats. If the octopus makes a hit with a tentacle, it will not do any damage immediately, but will pull the victim overboard and try to drown him. And then there's more information in room CH for more information about drowning. Assume that all characters know how to swim. The octopus gets 6 attacks per melee round. So basically the rules for drowning are the same as if you got dragged down by your armor. That's cool. And you get another exit, and you get a nice someone you can save. Next up, we have room N, which is up here. It's got, looks like maybe another exit of sorts. RPG Grandma says, ever since I was really ill back in the pandemic, my real life con has sucked. I just don't get better like I used to. Getting older sucks. I hear you. I hear you, RPG Grandma. It does indeed suck. All right, so here we have room N. This large room, 120 feet by 70 feet, is part of the catacombs of the city. The north wall has caved in, and there are doors only at the east and west ends of the tomb. 10 stone sarcophagi are scattered about, 4 empty with the tops off. 6, however, are closed. If the adventurers open one, roll a die to see which they have chosen. Number 1 contains only moldering bones, but releases a cloud of noxious gas, which renders unconscious anyone within 3 feet unless they make their saving throw against poison. Unconsciousness lasts 1 to 6 turns, depending on the dungeon master's die roll. Number 2 contains a partially clothed skeleton, which holds a jeweled dagger in the bony hands folded across its chest. If the dagger is removed, it will flash away into the air, turn, and attack the one who touched it. It strikes as a 1-hit die monster and will continue to attack until it draws blood, doing 1 die of damage, or its intended victim runs from the room. It will then return to the coffin with its owner. The dancing dagger is hard to hit, armor class 3, and if hit, it falls to the floor and remains motionless for 3 melee rounds, and then takes up the attack again. Putting it back in the sarcophagus will stop the attacks, of course. So you can't take it. So it's kind of cool, but unfortunately you can't bond it with you. It is, what's the word in kind of 5th edition? It's been, when magic items, it's been, what do you have to do? I forget the name of the thing, but that's basically bonding a magic item, because clearly that item has been bonded to by the dead person. In the third one, there's a skeleton who wears rings and a coronet worth 300 gold pieces. Number 4, a skeletal form wears jewelry worth 900 gold pieces. Attune, Ian says, thanks. And then Zach says soulbound from World of Warcraft. Yep, soulbound's kind of a cool term. But yeah, either way, it's attuned or soulbound. Number 5 has an animated skeleton with 7 hit points, armor class 7, and is armed with a curved scimitar. It will attack as soon as the lid is removed. Number 6, skeletal form in chainmail holds a magic sword +1. Any warrior type drawing it from the scabbard will feel the surge of magical power it gives. That's a nice note. When the party enters the room, there is a 50% chance a giant rat will burst through the loose dirt at the north end of the room and attack. Armor class 7, 4 hit points. At the end of each turn or each 10 melee rounds. Man, 10 melee rounds? That's a lot of rounds to be going with a rat. There's another 50% chance that a rat will enter from the tunnels. The rats will not, however, leave room N except to go back to the tunnels. The sarcophagus lids are heavy. 4 or more men can lift them off. 1 man would have to slide the lid off, and this would take 1 turn. Thus, it will take several turns to get them all open, and the rats are pretty sure to show up. So cool. So this is kind of another exit, I think. I don't remember if they said, they might have said somewhere how big those are. Because clearly it seems like you're meant to be able to go in there because they bothered to grid them out, I should say, and you've got some exits. But maybe a tough one to go, especially if there's full of rats. All right, so then there's room. Let's see, what do we got here? Whoops, room P is where? P. Here we go. I think, is this the last room we haven't seen? P. This room is 50 feet by 80 feet and has doors in all 4 walls. It contains 2 ghouls and some smashed coffins. The ghouls are armor class 6, and if they score a hit, they can paralyze their opponent unless he's an elf. They take 2 hit dice, 11, 9 hit points respectively. Coffins contain, in addition to indescribable odds and ends, 50 platinum pieces and 5 gems, each worth 10 gold pieces. The east door leads to a short dirt tunnel which ends blindly under the cemetery, which would be this door here. Okay, so we do have a note about the rat tunnels. Rat tunnels. They are only 3 feet in diameter, round, and dug through the soft earth of the cemetery. A man could crawl through them, but it should be hard for him to fight. -2, penalty to attack rolls. Whoops. Let's scroll up here. A halfling or dwarf would be at no particular disadvantage. Every 100 feet, there's a 50% chance of meeting a rat. Every 200 feet, a 50% chance of coming on 5 gold pieces. The tunnels form an endless maze, and there's no end to the rats. The tunnels intersect the dungeons at the northernmost corridor and at room N. Rats are described on the room N. Okay, so I guess they don't leave. There's just... But I suppose you could dig up? I don't know. And then we have S. I guess this might be the last thing. Spiral staircase. The spiral staircase begins at floor level at the north wall and winds around up to the roof 25 feet above, making 1 full turn. The stair ends in a closed trapdoor in the ceiling, leading up to room S1. The room contains a giant snake, armor class 6, 2 hit dice, and moves 100 feet per turn. There are 2 visible doors at ground level, north and south, as well as the trapdoors in the ceiling. There is a secret door under the stairs, opened by pressing a hidden catch. So where's S1? Did we get S1? Oh. I guess they don't. I guess S1 are bonuses, but they didn't make it onto the drawing. S1, ground floor of the Magician's Tower, entered through the trapdoor in the floor. There is a door to the north and a spiral staircase leading up, just like the one in the room below, ending in a trapdoor in the ceiling. The door to the street outside and the trap in the ceiling are both open. There is a fireplace, cooking utensils, and a few chairs. The room is unoccupied. The trapdoor above leads to room S2. S2, just above S1 and shaped the same, also with a spiral stair leading to the roof. Trapdoor closed. No doors, but narrow, tall windows in each wall. This is the wizard's study, and here he has his 2 giant volumes of magic spells, table, lamps, chemicals, skulls, loose pages of parchment, mystic designs on the floor, etc. Hold on, I need a drink of water here. Okay, against the south wall, there is an ape in an iron cage. Let's cut to the brass tacks. How much for the ape? The key is in the lock of the cage door. The ape is 2 hit die and is armor class 7 and will attack as soon as he gets out. He hates the cage, has been waiting to get even. If the magic user opens the cage, there's a 25% chance the ape will attack him. If anyone else opens the cage, the ape will attack someone in the room and then try to escape through a window, down the side of the tower, and off through the city streets. The magic user keeps his wand of petrification. The magic user keeps his wand of petrifaction. Try that again. The magic user keeps his wand of petrifaction, turns flesh to stone if he makes a hit with it, hidden in a secret compartment of the table. Only 5% chance of locating this compartment. It's very secret. Hidden among the undecipherable parchment notes on the table is a scroll which reverses the wand effect, but only for one person and only once. The magic user himself is described in room F. If he is not in room F, he will be found here. By the time the adventurers have worked their way through this, the dungeon master will probably have lots of ideas of his or her own to try out. Design your own dungeon or dig new passages and levels in this one. What lies in the undiscovered deeper levels where Xenopus met his doom? Do the pirates have other treasure troves hidden in the sea caves? What inhuman rites are practiced deep in the ghoul-haunted passages beneath the graveyard? What are the townspeople going to do when they discover that our friends are tampering with Things better left alone. So very cool notes on, hey, where to go from this. And then we get a note about dice, which I'm going to skip. And then we get a note about the editor, which I'm going to read because it was his birthday on Sunday. The editor of this booklet, Dr. J. Eric Holmes, is an associate professor of neurology at the University of Southern California's School of Medicine. In addition, he is a devoted Dungeons & Dragons player whose background as a writer eminently qualifies him to prepare a work such as this one. In addition to authoring a college-level textbook in his own field, Dr. Holmes has also completed 2 novels in the area of fantasy literature. His versatility is further demonstrated by his valuable work on this volume for basic Dungeons & Dragons. And then we get a list of other titles from TSR. And we are done. And we get a little reference page with some costs of things. Bada bing, bada boom, 48 pages. Only took slightly less than 3 hours. 2 hours, 47 minutes, 30 seconds. And we are through with Holmes D&D. I really enjoyed this. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Guys, gals, folks of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, etc., etc. Funny that the wizard not going to name the magic users. It said kind of the magic users room. I guess that means you can do it yourself. Give them a name. Yeah, I don't think it says. Yeah, it's just the magic users room. No name. Unnamed, but you can name them at your leisure. Very fun. I think we got to cover what I think are most of the oddities or just interesting bits that Holmes kind of does differently than other rules. The part with the daggers is kind of super fun and interesting. It does kind of balance things very differently, as well as not only do the daggers going twice per turn, but then 2-handers and other big weapons going once every other turn, and with everything doing d6 damage. You know, it seems like the best course of action is to arm yourself with a bunch of daggers and go to work. Happy birthday, belatedly, Mr. Holmes. Hopefully you're enjoying a great reward in the great beyond. Maybe you're getting to play catch up on some gaming with Arneson and Gygax and the other folks who've left the hobby all too soon. Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. I'm going to take a break. I think I might do another stream on the other channel tonight. We'll see. If I do, I will ping the various channels and let folks know. Other than that, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Whew. Game on, everybody. Talk to you later.